A young woman, appearing no older than 20, sat casually on the third-floor windowsill of a grand feudal-style manor. If the assault team hasn't hit any snags, she murmured, they should be fighting Serval right about now. Akaji. Her hair, a flowing mix of dark green and black, defied gravity as it drifted back behind her. Amber eyes gleamed beneath pale skin, and her clothing was equally striking, a black kimono tied with a white obi, topped by a hantan the same shade as her hair. Boldly printed on the back, a red handprint inside a red circle. Beside her, a man in an immaculate suit lay face down in a pool of blood forgotten. Well then, she said, her voice cold but oddly soothing, like the dying warmth of an autumn sunset. If this is my last day here, might as well break out the good stuff. Akaji. Reaching into the air, she summoned a black distortion, pulling out a bottle of sake, a cup, and some carefully selected snacks. There you are, she smiled. Ayakashi brand sake, straight from the Emperor's personal reserve. Been saving you for a special occasion, and getting kicked back to that unsatisfying life in Kyoto feels like a good enough excuse. Akaji. She poured a golden stream into her cup, breathing in its rich aroma. Hell yes, she whispered. Just the smell alone promises this'll be the best drink of my life. A sip turned into a shot, and she slammed the cup down with a satisfied sigh. Holy hell, the Emperor's private stock doesn't disappoint. After this, anything IRL is gonna taste like water. Just another reason I don't want to leave this world. Akaji. For an hour, Akaji drank in peace, savoring the sake and the gentle breeze drifting through the city. Once, a maid peered into the room, caught sight of the scene, and quietly withdrew without a word. Ping. A notification blinked into Akaji's vision. She glanced at it lazily. Looks like they've got the boss down to its final health bar, she muttered. All those deaths finally paid off. It's a default kill now, no way Serval wins. Akaji. This was the sixth and final assault. Every previous attempt had carved out painful lessons, bought with lives. But this time, they were ready. Glad I cracked open the good stuff, Akaji mused. Looks like it's finally over. 3 years, 8 months, and 12 days. That's how long I got to live as my true self. She took another sip, her expression unreadable. And now, back to a world that never wanted me. Back to weakness. Back to pretending. Akaji. She chuckled dryly. Most people are probably cheering. Going home, back to their families, ready to put this nightmare behind them. She paused, then smiled wistfully. Even I miss Kana. She should be a junior in high school now. Wonder if she made it to Tokyo like she dreamed. A shake of the head. If anyone here knew the Red Hand had a little sister she loved, they'd lose their minds. Hisha'd probably call it Gapmo or some dumb shit. Akaji. She poured another drink. A toast, she said softly, raising her cup to the fading light. To the death of Akaji the Red Hand, and the rebirth of whoever the hell I used to be. Then her hand froze. A creeping realization hit her. I don't remember my name, she whispered. Panic flickered in her amber eyes. I've been here less than 4 years. How could I have forgotten? A bitter smile tugged at her lips. Guess that shows how much more real this life was to me. She stretched her arms wide, theatrically announcing. Akaji, the Red Hand, FWO's finest assassin. The wind stirred around her as she gazed down at the city below. Funny, she murmured. Back in school they told us, find your passion, follow your dream. Wonder what my old guidance counselor would say if she knew this was my passion. She laughed again, a broken, beautiful sound. Probably cry. Tell me I'm a monster. That this isn't normal isn't right. Another sip. And maybe she's right. But I don't care. She tapped the rim of her cup. I wonder, will I be arrested when I get back? I never exactly hid my identity. I'm sure the police will put 2 and 2 together. Bet Kishizama would love to avenge Shizami. Idiots. Akaji. She leaned back against the window, unbothered. No regrets, she said, tipping the cup back. Might not be what Hisha meant, but hey, details. Another drink. Another toast. The hero of FWO, she said with a mocking smile. The victor of Hassan. The Flame Empress. Hisha racked up quite the list. Bet she'll be worshipped back home. Headlines singing her praises. She chuckled darkly. Would be funny if they knew their hero needed my services more than once. Akaji. For a while, she simply sat there, watching the city live and breathe beneath her. Ding. The system voice returned, formal and triumphant. Congratulations, players. The world boss Serval has been defeated. All 10 world bosses have been slain. Calculating statistics. Akaji listened, her expression unreadable, as the grim numbers poured in. Survivors, 1,047 out of 3,000. Players killed by monsters, 1,542. Player suicides, 126. Deaths by glitches, animals, drowning, even chickens. Amid the grim tally, her name shone. Player with the highest number of player kills, Akaji, 104. Highest personal bounty, 126, 453, 523 gold coins. The survival rate, 35%. Then came the final announcement. All survivors will be logged out and granted rewards. Congratulations. Akaji blinked. Rewards? What's the point? We're about to leave anyway. Another message flashed across her vision. Dear Akaji, congratulations. You've survived Free World Online and achieved the unique status of Limit Breaker. Your legacy as the Red Hand has inspired both fear and respect across the world. In recognition of your talents, you have been selected to receive a special reward. Additionally, a bonus reward has been deposited into your inventory. Continue to foster your natural abilities, and may your legend only grow from here. Sincerely, your friend Mizumi. Akaji stiffened. Limit Breaker? Mizumi? Who the hell? Ping. Beginning logout. See you later. A blinding flash engulfed her, and for one terrifying moment, Akaji thought she'd been killed after all. But when her vision cleared, she found herself staring at the clear plastic visor of her VR helmet. She choked, coughing violently. Around her, she heard frantic shouting. Doctor! She's awake. The roughness of the sheets, the chill of the sterile air, the overwhelming flood of real sensations, it was too much after years inside FWO's limited sensory environment. She struggled weakly to move, but her body barely responded. Figures. 4 years without moving. My muscles are shot. Akaji. A nurse appeared, gently pushing her back down. Don't move, she said kindly. You're very weak. Let me get that helmet off. The nurse lifted the VR device away, revealing Akaji's pale face. The nurse's eyes widened, clearly recognizing something that made her blood run cold, before she called out, trembling. Dr. Amherst. You need to see this now. A few seconds after the nurse's urgent call, a voice echoed from the hallway. I'm coming, I'm coming. I'm aware the patient is awake, but shouting hardly seems necessary, Karika. A moment later, the owner of the voice entered, a man in a white coat, clearly a doctor. He strode into the room briskly, only to halt mid-step as his eyes fell on Akaji. He blinked, visibly startled. It took him a moment to recover his professional demeanor. Well, he said carefully, I suppose Ms. Rishia having completely different hair and eye color is grounds for some concern. He turned to the nurse. Bring me her chart, it should be on my desk. Amherst. Akaji studied the man. He wasn't Japanese. Brown hair, graying at the temples, and sharp gray eyes. He looked American, maybe in his mid-40s. An American doctor? No, that doesn't add up. That nurse was clearly Japanese. And flying me across the Pacific while trapped in the headset would have been suicide. Akaji. At least he spoke fluent Japanese. The man offered a gentle smile. My name is David Amherst. You're at Kyoto Central Hospital. You were moved here with your parents' consent after it became clear that Free World Online's alpha testers were trapped. His expression darkened. The UN assembled a task force, doctors specializing in VR treatment and coma care. Like myself. He sighed heavily. Not that it helped much, he added bitterly. We could keep your bodies alive, but we couldn't do anything to wake you. We tried to remove the headgear early on, but... Akaji didn't need him to finish. Yeah. People died. We figured messing with the gear could kill us, but hearing it confirmed still sucks. Akaji. Amherst stepped closer. Are you able to speak? He asked gently. It's normal to struggle after such extreme muscle atrophy. Akaji inhaled slowly. Why yeah, a little difficult, but I can talk. Akaji. Relief flickered across his face. Good. That makes things easier. Tell me, were you the only one to log out? Amherst. In a weak but steady voice, Akaji explained that the assault team had defeated the final world boss and that the system had promised everyone a logout. At first, Amherst smiled, But his smile soon crumbled into a look of deep sadness.
It's good.
It's good that it's over,
He said, voice trembling.
but almost 2,000 dead, and we couldn't save a single one. All our technology, all our breakthroughs, useless. His hands shook slightly. Every day we watched and waited, wondering who would die next. Wondering if there'd be anyone left to save. Tears welled in his eyes. My apologies, he said, wiping them away quickly. You deserve better than to see this mess.
Amherst.
Not long after, Nurse Karika returned carrying a file folder. Here you are, doctor, she said.
Thank you.
Also, contact her family, and reach out to Chief Nakagumo and Dr. Ishihara. Set up a meeting ASAP.
Amherst.
Turning back to Akaji, he softened his voice. Your family will be here soon.
Your sister, Kana, right?
Visited you constantly. She told everyone you were a genius. Said no game could beat you. He chuckled quietly.
Seems she was right. Amherst.
For now, he continued, I need to run some basic checks. Nothing invasive, just vitals.
Akaji agreed.
After all, she was just as curious about her condition. The checkup was quick, and Amherst eventually set the equipment aside. Overall, you're stable. Weak, yes, but that's expected. What concerns me most, though.
He paused, hesitating. Your appearance. Your eyes, amber.
Your hair, green mixed with black. Your skin, paler than before. This is, well, different. According to your records, you had black hair and brown eyes.
Amherst.
He gave her a sympathetic look, though confusion lingered in his gaze. Any idea how this could have happened? I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like it. Akaji frowned, thinking. Could I see a mirror? Akaji. Amherst nodded and fetched a small portable mirror from across the room. He held it up so she could see herself. Staring back at her was the face she knew intimately. Her FWO avatar. Her real face, as far as she was concerned. She laughed, a full, genuine laugh that startled the doctor. Seeing his alarm, she quickly waved a hand. I'm fine, she assured him, still grinning. In fact, I'm better than fine. This face, she said reverently, is mine. It's the face I saw every day in Free World Online.
It's me.
Maybe, this is the system's reward. If so, I'm definitely not complaining. Akaji. Amherst watched her, struggling between scientific concern and human sympathy. I see, he said carefully. If that's your avatar, I understand why you'd be happy. But, I truly don't understand how such a change could happen. It defies everything we know about VR tech. No physical interaction. No biological link, and yet here she is, changed at the genetic level? This is madness. Ishihara's going to lose it.
Amherst.
Akaji said nothing about Mizumi or the promised reward. She wasn't ready to open that door yet. Once you're stronger, we'll need to run some extensive tests, Amherst said gently. Just to be safe. There could be side effects we don't understand yet. She nodded in agreement. For the next 45 minutes, they went through cognitive tests and memory checks. Finally, Amherst sat back, looking thoughtful. Your memory seems intact, except your original name, he said. Based on everything you've told me, I'd say it wasn't brain damage.
It was disassociation.
You embraced your identity as Akaji so fully that your old name, Rishia Tamagawa, faded away.
Amherst. Rishia Tamagawa, Akaji.
Hearing it aloud stirred no emotion.
No sense of connection.
It felt wrong, a name for a person who no longer existed. Akaji fits me far better. Always has. Always will. Akaji. She smiled faintly. Strange. Why do I sense someone approaching?
No, 3 people.
It's the same feeling I had when using Detect Presence in FWO, but that's impossible. Right? She pushed the thought aside for now.
Amherst rose.
Your family should be here any minute. I'll leave you to rest. No restrictions on visiting hours for you, you've earned that much. He smiled kindly. Don't overexert yourself. Healing will take time, but you'll get there.
Amherst. Bang. The door flew open.
A girl in a school uniform with a black ponytail burst into the room, tears already welling in her eyes.
Oni-chan. Kana.
Akaji's heart squeezed painfully at the familiar, beloved voice.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
One-chan! The girl screamed.
One-chan, are you really awake?
Kana screamed.
Miss Kana, I know you are happy to see your sister again and I can sympathize with you, but I would ask that you keep the volume to a reasonable level.
Amherst chuckled. Ah.
Sorry, Mr. Amherst. Kana's face goes slightly red from embarrassment. Dr. Amherst returned a smile. I just finished up my examination of your sister. She is cognizant and vocal, but I would ask that you don't push her too much. Where are your parents? I should speak with them.
Amherst.
They should be on their way up. I might have broken out into a sprint when I got out of the car, Kana says while scratching her face. I see, then I will leave your sister in your care. Amherst. Dr. Amherst swiftly left the room and started talking to one of the nurses as he entered the hallway. Kana approached the hospital bed that contained Akaji. Her eyes were already starting to get moist. It was clear that she was on the verge of tears. One-chan, are you really back? She asked, is it finally over? Akaji let out a small laugh.
Yeah kiddo, I'm back.
Your gaming genius keeps her undefeated record just a little longer. Not even a literal death game was enough to beat me. Akaji says with a bright smile. At this point, the proverbial dam broke and Kana began to cry. She came up to Akaji and placed her hands on top hers. I thought I would never see you again. She says through her tears. Every day I was so scared. Scared that we would get the message that you were dead. I watched the number of living players drop from 3,000 to 2,000 to nearly 1,000.
Her tears got worse.
Each time I saw that a player other than you had died, I was glad. All that mattered was that you were still alive and that someone else had died instead of you. At this point, she was crying so hard she couldn't even speak. Akaji placed a hand on her head. It's all right, it's all right.
I'm here now, Kana. It's over.
Kana continued to cry for a few minutes before she calmed down enough to speak. Kana, there is nothing wrong with being happy that the person you cared about was alive. Some might find that cold or cruel, but it's human nature to want your loved ones to live. During these last 4 years, I've seen people do horrible things to others, just to ensure that those they cared about survived. Akaji. Was it really okay for me to think that way? Doesn't that make me a terrible person?
Kana.
It was clear to Akaji that this had been eating away at Kana.
No, Kana, it just makes you human.
Nothing more and nothing less. Akaji replied with a smile. I can imagine Hisha would retort by asking if I was even human at this point. And she wouldn't exactly be wrong, not that she is either. Akaji.
One-chan.
Kana said nervously. Do you know about your hair and your
eyes?
Kana asked with visible concern. Yes, Kana, I do. Akaji responded instantly. And before you ask, my appearance seems to have changed to match my avatar in FWO. I have no idea how this happened, but I don't care. After all, this means that Akaji lives on. Akaji's glee from being able to keep her appearance was visible on her face. Akaji? Who is that?
Kana asked.
I am Akaji, she answered with a slightly deeper and louder voice. Akaji is me and I am Akaji. The person I always was, the person I was always meant to be. That's who Akaji is. It was obvious that Kana had no idea what she was talking about and confusion and concern were plastered all over her face. During those 4 years in FWO, I got to experience the most fun I've ever had in my entire life, Kana. I spent every day training myself, pushing all my game knowledge to the limit and then some. My skill made me virtually untouchable. My name alone was enough to terrify players and NPCs alike. Not a day went by where I didn't feel joy at just being alive.
I found it, Kana.
I found my calling in life. I found what I am passionate about, what I lived for, and what I am good at. I wasn't just playing a game as a character, Kana. I truly became Akaji. Akaji.
Kana became concerned.
She had never heard her sister talk this way and with this kind of conviction and excitement before. Not even when she was playing games back home did she see this level of joy on her sister's face. She could tell deep down whatever Akaji had found in FWO had truly brought her happiness. Of course, that begged the all-important question, one she found herself afraid to ask. And what are you good at, One-chan?
Kana asked with concern. Assassination.
Akaji replied with a grin that sent chills up her sister's spine. As Kana considered the implications of what she had just been told by her sister, time seemed to stop. Kana had known for many years that her sister didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. While Kana's grades were excellent, She was even heralded as a genius. Her sisters were mediocre to the point where some people questioned how they could be related. Kana never cared about this gap and was always just happy to have her sister. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for their parents, who treated Akaji poorly. Their parents would constantly berate Akaji for how much worse she was than her younger sister, and they made it obvious that they were embarrassed by her. It got to the point where they stopped referring to Akaji as their daughter unless they absolutely had to. Naturally, this harmed Akaji's mental and physical well-being and even resulted in her briefly being admitted to a psychiatric hospital when she was 12. While she was eventually released with a clean bill of health, it was clear to Kana that her sister was never completely the same after that experience. From that day forward, her parents essentially stopped dealing with Akaji. They treated her as a ghost in her own home, only proving the bare minimum to avoid claims of neglect. Their parents then spent all their time and resources on Kana, who they believed had a better future. Even though she was young, Kana knew that the treatment of her sister was wrong, and she tried on a few occasions to make changes. But Akaji always stopped her, telling her that was not worth the trouble and that she would be fine without her parents. As the years went by, Kana noticed more and more that Akaji had withdrawn from society as she spent more and more time on gaming. Eventually, it had gotten to the point that Akaji only left the house to go to school or to spend time with Kana. All this time, Kana could only ask herself why her sister didn't hate her, why she didn't resent her. After all, Kana believed that without her, their parents would never have acted so cruelly toward her sister. As time went on, Akaji and Kana grew older. The two began spending more and more time together. They would play games, hang out, and just generally spend time together as sisters. It was during this time that Kana came to understand her sister's genius. What she lacked in academic ability, she more than made up for in her ability to play and master any kind of game. Be they board games, card games, video games, or any other, her sister was terrifyingly good at them. She encouraged her sister to lean into her talents, telling her, "I'm sure you will find what you love in gaming, One-ichan. After all, there is no one better than you." Now, all these years later, her sister has finally told her what had made her happy. The joy in Kana's heart from being reunited with her sister was brought to a screeching halt. The journey Kana sent her sister on led Akaji to believe that being an assassin was her calling. Was this really the path she was meant to follow? Or was it something that occurred because of Kana? The thought that she had essentially doomed her sister was too much to bear for the girl. Akaji became concerned when Kana froze up.
Kana, hey Kana, are you alright? Akaji. Is it my fault?
Did I do this to you? Kana asked while holding back tears. I told you to find your happiness in gaming and now.
Kana
began to cry and shake vigorously. As someone who had gone through a mental breakdown once, Akaji knew exactly what was going on.
Kana,
listen to me, it's not your fault.
Akaji.
However, no matter how many times she called out to her sister, it was clear that none of her words were getting through. Akaji tried to sit up but found that she had no strength. Damn it, this fucking body is useless. What I wouldn't do to have my body strengthening right now, Akaji. Just as that thought left her head, she suddenly felt a rush of energy flow throughout her body. It was an all too familiar feeling, one that she knew from her countless days in FWO, one that she shouldn't be able to feel in the real world. Akaji's confusion was quickly replaced with action as she grabbed Kana and pulled her into an embrace. Nothing is your fault, you hear me? Akaji yelled, I became the person I am today of my own free will. You don't control me or my life, and what I choose to do is not your fault nor your responsibility. She forced her sister to look into her eyes. Kana, you brought me strength when I needed it most, you kept me alive for all these years and gave me hope when I had none. Look in my eyes, Kana. Do you see a person who regrets what they became or what they have done? Do you see a person so weak that they would be controlled by the will of another? Akaji. A few moments pass as Kana stares into her sister's amber eyes. No, Kana replied weakly. Exactly, I made my decision when I took my first life in FWO and I've never once regretted it, and I don't want you to regret pushing me to find what makes me happy. Akaji. The two siblings held each other in a tight embrace for several minutes without saying anything. Are you okay now? Akaji. Aha, Kana says with her face buried in Akaji's chest. Good, now you should probably get off me. I doubt straining my body is a smart idea right now. Akaji. Sorry. You shouldn't have strained yourself for me, she said quickly, standing up. I'm surprised that you could even move that much looking like you do. Kana. Heh. I couldn't just let my sister stand there crying right in front of me now, could I? Besides, I saw what was going on. You were on the verge of going through what I did all those years ago. I sure as hell don't want you to go through that. Akaji. Let's not mention how I just used my physical strengthening ability from FWO. That might make things even more confusing. Why can I use that in the real world? Can I use any other abilities? Questions for later.
Akaji. Kana let out a chuckle. Thanks, Wani-chan.
I'm not going to pretend that I understand everything you've been through both in FWO and at home. Your career choice was definitely not what I expected when I told you to find your happiness in gaming. I always thought you would be a pro gamer or a content creator, not an assassin. While I don't completely understand, I can say that no matter what, you will always be my sister, and I will always love you no matter what. Besides, if I left you alone, who knows what kind of trouble you would get into.
Kana.
The two siblings exchanged wide smiles. Their bond remained unshakable as ever and perhaps even grew deeper. However, a small sparkle in Kana's eye which had gone unnoticed by Akaji gave the impression that Kana had not said everything on her mind. So Wani-chan is an assassin? I guess I'll have my work cut out for me if I'm going to support her. I don't know if I can agree with such a lifestyle, but I'll do my best to help her.
Kana.
Yes, for while many jokingly called Kana obsessed with her older sister, few would ever understand just how far she was willing to go for her. It wasn't much later that Akaji and Kana's parents entered the room. Their stay was brief, and it seemed that nothing had changed in the 4 years Akaji had been gone. The two of them were more worried about Kana and complained that Akaji's condition could have caused Kana's grades to drop. They berated Akaji for her gaming habit causing problems for the family and told her that she had better figure out her life quickly as they wouldn't be helping her now that she was nearly 21. Naturally, Kana was furious. For the first time in her life, Akaji watched as Kana yelled at her parents. Kana had never been one for arguing and would rarely get mad, let alone scream at someone. Their parents were taken aback by this sudden outburst and at first blamed Akaji's influence, but this only set Kana off even more. It seemed that all the stress and resentment towards her parents had finally come to a head and Kana was finally saying what had been on her mind for nearly a decade. Once Kana was finished, she requested their parents to leave and told them that she would have a friend drive her home. Akaji watched this entire thing with ostensible shock, but deep down, she had known this was coming for years. She knew that Kana adored her and that she hated how her parents treated her. For years she had always talked Kana down from confronting them by telling her that she would one day leave and that the issue would solve itself. Of course, getting trapped in FWO for nearly 4 years had thrown a slight wrench into those plans. It didn't help that during her time in FWO their parents had been less than supportive. Sure, they treated Kana as well as they always had, but it was as if they didn't even acknowledge that their other daughter's life was endangered. Apparently, they even told Kana that her schoolwork was more important than visiting her hospitalized sister. Naturally, Kana ignored these complaints and there was little that their parents could do to stop her. Despite everything, Akaji wanted Kana to have a normal relationship with their parents. Whether their love of Kana was because they saw her as a meal ticket is up to speculation. But from the outside, they were supportive and loving to her and Akaji wanted it to stay that way. Of course, there were plenty of times when Akaji wanted to put a wedge between Kana and their parents, but she always held off on doing so out of love for her sister. After their parents left, the two sisters continued their conversation. Kana asked Akaji to tell her about what happened in FWO over those last 4 years and Akaji obliged. She kept nothing from Kana, telling her how she had spent her time there as an assassin taking contracts from players and NPCs alike. Contrary to Akaji's expectations, Kana took it all in stride, becoming interested in the details of Akaji's work. I'm not sure whether I should be happy or concerned that Kana has taken such an interest in my line of work. Perhaps she is more fascinated by the absurdity than anything else. Akaji. Eventually, Kana asked about a specific player. If I'm not mistaken, before you went into FWO you had been talking with that friend of yours Hisha, right? You were supposed to play together, was she in the game?
Kana asked.
Akaji thought for a second. I wouldn't say Hisha and I are friends. If anything, we could best be called kindred spirits.
Akaji. Kana looked at her, confused.
Kindred spirits? Both of us had no idea what we wanted to do in life. We spent all our spare time playing games because they gave us something we needed. Akaji remarked. I played games to get away from reality, to split myself off from the world around me. This led to me taking actions in games that would be considered far from acceptable in the real world. Essentially, I played the bad guy and I loved every second of it. I understand now that this wasn't just some wanton escapism, but rather my real personality which I had been suppressing.
Akaji chuckled.
Hisha, like me, used gaming to let her real self out. In-game, Hisha would always ensure she was the center of attention. Not in an annoying way, mind you, she was smart. She would always find the niche would be in the center of any action, would naturally work her way into leadership roles, and generally made herself indisposable. She did this by combining her skill and charisma into a terrifyingly effective combination. This ensured that when it came down to it, everyone would be glad she was around. Akaji continued. And why does she do this, you might ask? It's simple, she is vain as hell. She loves watching people fawn over her and praise her. At this point, I'm convinced she gets off to it. She ruthlessly takes down anyone else who might outshine her and ensures that she reigns supreme. She did this in FWO to great effect, and I'm sure in the coming weeks, you will hear all kinds of stories about Hisha the hero, and her many feats of bravery. Naturally, every one of those was a deliberate act to increase her reputation. I can't be mad at the girl, hell I might even be inclined to praise her myself since it takes commitment to pull this off. Akaji took a deep breath. Listen, Kana, FWO was just as much of a gift to her as much as it was for me. Now that she has all this fame and adoration from there, who knows what she will do next? I wouldn't consider her a bad person, but...
Akaji warned.
Kana was taken aback by all this information and made a mental note to add Hisha to the top of her people dangerous to one each on list. A little while later, 2 police detectives arrived and began collecting information from Akaji. They wanted to know what had occurred in FWO and if she could help them to pinpoint the person responsible for this event. Of course, Akaji was just as in the dark as they were and couldn't tell them much about the mastermind. However, she was able to confirm that the system voice used in the game matched the voice of the one who informed law enforcement that the players were trapped 4 years prior. Of course, Akaji had no choice but to disclose to the detectives what she had been doing during her time in FWO. She informed them that she had been an assassin who had killed many players during these 4 years. However, to both her and Kana's surprise, she was told that she was off the hook for those deaths. They explained using some very complex legal explanation that she couldn't be held responsible. The only thing she managed to even remotely understand was that part of the reasoning stemmed from an inability to understand how the players had actually died. From what she was told, they never detected any interaction between the headgear and the players' bodies, and thus the cause of death couldn't be determined. Kana seemed to have no trouble following the complex explanation, which Akaji found cute. But then again, something like this was nothing out of the ordinary for her sister. The detectives did say that just because she couldn't be held legally responsible for those deaths, that didn't mean the court of public opinion was safe. They told her that, most likely, this information would be made public and that there was little they could do to protect her from societal backlash. Of course, Akaji didn't really care what other people thought of her. Kana seemed to have accepted her for who she was, and that was all that mattered. The detectives stayed for almost 2 hours, asking a seemingly never-ending barrage of questions. Akaji had been close to asking them to leave when they declared they were finished and would return if they had any further queries. After that, Akaji sent Kana home, something the girl vehemently opposed. After some convincing and reminding her that she could simply come back tomorrow, Kana called her friend from school and got a ride home. It was now well after dark, Akaji was alone in her room and the hospital was eerily quiet. Now then, with today's game of 2,000 fucking questions done, it's time to see what the hell is going on with my body. First of all, let's confirm that I can actually use body strengthening and that earlier wasn't a fluke. Akaji took a moment to remember the sensation from earlier and cross it with how she understood body strengthening in the game. What resulted was an all too familiar sensation spreading throughout her body and into each and every muscle. Well, that confirms that I can use body strengthening magic in the real world. In fact, I can sense my magic pool as I did in the game, only this time it's more of a feeling rather than a status bar. She brought her hand up and snapped her fingers, causing a small amount of fire to appear above her them. I can use my fire magic too. How is this even possible? It was just a game, a simulation made of electricity and code. Things carrying over IRL shouldn't be possible. The only explanation I have is the reward the system spoke about right at the end. So does that mean 99 other people have come back into the real world as their characters? And if we got to keep our skills, I wonder if... Akaji's mouth changed to a wry smile as she reached her hand out in front of her. Suddenly, a small black distortion appeared, causing Akaji to become excited as she reached inside. After a few moments, she withdrew her hand, bringing with her a sheathed wakizashi. After a few moments, she slowly unsheathed the blade and pointed it toward the ceiling.
Ha 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 ha. Akaji began to laugh in pure delight.
Well, my friend, I guess this means we're just getting started.
Spoiler.
Asterisk. Alright class, it's time for lunch. Make sure you don't forget to do your reading assignment and the corresponding homework for Chapter 2.
Female teacher. Thank goodness, Student 1.
I'm starving, Student 2. Can you show me your math homework?
Student 3.
The students proceed to break for lunch, with some heading to the cafeteria, while others sat at their friends' desks to chat and eat together. However, one blue-haired girl decided to run straight to Kana's desk before jumping and landing face first on top of it. Help me, Kana, this math homework is killing me, I don't understand it at all.
Mika.
Come on now, Mika, you should know it's dangerous to jump around like that. I'm sure Kana would help you even if you asked normally. The purple-haired girl behind her said with an exasperated look on her face. These are Kana's closest friends, Mika Yamanaka and Naomi Tokugawa respectively. They had gotten to know each other during their freshman year at Kyoto High School and became fast friends. As you can imagine, this wasn't the first time that Mika had come to Kana for help. You might be right, but it's more fun to do this, Mika replied with a bright smile. I guess you're right, hitting your head a few more times won't hurt you, it might even help you out, Naomi replies with a laugh. How could you say something so mean, Naomi? Must be that Tokugawa blood in you that sucks out all the fun, Mika replied sharply. The two girls locked their eyes in a staring contest for several seconds until
PFFF. Mika. PFFF. Naomi.
Ahahahaha, Mika and Naomi. The two girls began to laugh quite hard. Such banter had become common between them over the last 2 years and was actually part of the reason they became such good friends. The two of you really are idiots, aren't you? Kana says with a cheeky smile. At this point, you should just become a comedy duo with how well you have the act down at this point. Sounds great, when do we start, Naomi?
Mika.
I'll pass, I have a feeling that my ancestors would spin in their graves if I tried that, Naomi said with a smile. Ah yes, I'm sure Ieyasu would be angry if one of his descendants was making people laugh rather than boring them to death.
Mika.
Indeed, Naomi was a proper descendant of the Tokugawa Ieyasu. Although her family doesn't have much in the way of direct influence, it's still quite prestigious, and she is treated as minor celebrity. Why this daughter of the Tokugawa clan was attending a school in Kyoto, no one knows. To answer your question, Mika, I don't mind helping you, but need I remind you of your last tutoring session with me? Kana said with an almost sadistic grin. Seeing the look on Kana's face, Mika shuddered, remembering the almost Spartan teaching method she used. Naomi, help me instead. I forgot Kana stands far beyond us mere mortals.
Mika cried.
You do remember that I'm terrible at math too?
Right.
Naomi replied with an embarrassed look on her face.
No.
I don't want to go back to the Spartan training again.
Wah.
Mika began to flail around in a panic. It's either this or risk taking the makeup over and over again. Which will it be? I don't mind tutoring the both of you. On the outside, it appeared that Kana was warmly smiling, but her two friends could see the evil hidden behind it. With no other choice, the two agreed. I feel like I just sold my soul to a demon.
Mika.
At least the demon in question is someone as cute as Kana.
Naomi.
While I'm glad you think of me that way, if you think I'm scary you should see One-ichan, I've got nothing on her, Kana replied with a smile. She can be downright terrifying when it comes to her gaming. Oh yeah, didn't you say that your sister was getting out of the hospital today? It's only been a month, has that been enough recovery time? Naomi asked with concern. She recovered much faster than anyone expected, regaining almost 100% of her muscle mass and mobility. You should have seen the look on Dr. Amherst's face when he saw her walking around last week.
Kana.
Akaji's recovery had been almost miraculous. Under normal circumstances, it should have taken months for her body to recover from nearly 4 years of non-use. Behind closed doors, the doctor suspected that her rapid recovery had something to do with her changed body, but they couldn't be sure. Kana also suspected that her sister had been hiding something from her, but chose not to ask for now. Well, that's great news. I'm glad your sister was able to recover. Naomi froze mid-sentence. I'm so sorry, Mika, that was insensitive to say things like that in front of you, Naomi said apologetically.
Huh? I told you it's fine.
Sure, I wish my brother had managed to survive FWO, but that doesn't mean that Kana can't be happy her sister survived. I would never take that away from her. Mika replied with a small smile. Speaking of my brother, would it be possible to go with you to see your sister? I wanted to ask her if she knew anything about my brother. We don't even know how he died and I don't know anyone else to ask.
Mika.
I don't mind, but let me ask my sister. I doubt she will care if you would come. Naomi, do you want to come too? I'm going right after class today.
Kana.
Sure, I must admit I kinda want to meet this sister, you're so fond of myself, Naomi replied. If you want, I can ask my driver to take us and drop you and your sister at your house. If that's not an inconvenience to you, that would be great.
Kana.
Naomi gave a bright smile. Naomi was indeed curious to meet Kana's older sister. After all, her friend had talked her up the entire time they'd known each other, so naturally, she was interested in seeing how true her boasts were. But she had another objective. While the Tokugawa family's influence in modern Japan was minimal, her family's connections meant she could get certain information the general public was not privy to. Naomi had heard some interesting rumors about Akaji and was interested in confirming them for herself. That girl, if what I've heard is even half true, she could be the most dangerous of all the returnees. She could also be just the answer I've been searching for.
Naomi.
Naomi pushed these thoughts to the back of her head. She would approach Akaji with the intent of feeling her out. She couldn't afford to jeopardize her friendship with Kana, not with how valuable she is, and would refrain from taking any action which might upset her. Akaji, I sincerely hope you're the kind of person my sources and your sister say you are. Naomi silently prayed in her mind. The girls then spent their lunch together. Music and anime were the primary topics with a few others sprinkled in. The rest of the school day came and went with little fanfare, the only notable event being Mika getting yelled at for falling asleep during literature class. Alright class, don't forget your homework for next week and I will see you all on Monday. And Ms. Yamanaka, each time you fall asleep in my class, the book I use will get heavier.
Male teacher.
The entire class chuckled at the teacher's last remark. The three girls packed up their belongings and headed for the main entrance. Why is Mr. Takeshi so mean to me? I'm his niece and he still hits me with those heavy textbooks.
Mika.
He does it because you're his niece. Weren't your mom's words, and I quote, feel free to hit her as hard as you like, her head is dense enough to handle it. If you want him to stop, then maybe you should, I don't know, not sleep in his class.
Naomi.
But the classroom is so warm and the books are so boring, Mika said while giving puppy eyes. Naomi just shook her head. My driver should be in front of the school so we can leave immediately.
Naomi.
Thank you so much, Naomi, I really appreciate this. It saves me the trouble of having to go home first and get my dad's car.
Kana.
Still crazy that you can drive, I'm too scared to get behind the wheel.
Mika.
I was nervous at first, but it's not too bad. I'm just thankful that traffic isn't as bad here as it is in Osaka or Tokyo.
Kana.
Outside the main gate is a small black car and an older man dressed like a butler standing in front of the passenger door. Hello my lady, Ms. Yamanaka, Ms. Tamagawa, how was your day today?
Driver. Hello, Mr. Nishizami. Did you get older?
I see a few more gray hairs. Mika asked with a mischievous grin. If I do have more, they are likely from the extra stress I receive from you. The older man said with a smile. I swear, Mika has a superpower that just allows her to do those kinds of acts with anyone.
Naomi.
Yeah, that level of charisma is almost cheating.
Kana.
The three girls got into the car and headed to Kyoto Central Hospital, which was quite close. The driver parked in the adjacent lot and told Naomi to contact him when they were out front so that they could limit the distance Akaji needed to walk. It only took a few minutes for the three of them to clear security and head up to Akaji's room. I don't think I've ever been in here before.
Mika. Really?
I would have thought your brother would have been brought here like Kana's sister was.
Naomi.
Mika's expression darkened slightly. My brother was in Osaka for university and was placed in a hospital there, Mika replied. That makes sense, less risk that way.
Naomi.
It was well known at this point that transporting those trapped in FWO was extremely risky. A few had even died when family or medical staff had attempted to remove the headgear. The only reason more people didn't die was that whoever trapped the players gave a short window where they could move people to hospitals. Of course, this was little consolation to the families of those who were trapped. This gave off the impression that whoever did this saw the whole ordeal as a game/entertainment. Here we are, room 431. My sister is in here, Kana stated. Wani-chan, we're here to pick you up. Are you ready to go? Kana's words slowed to a crawl. The sight that greeted the three girls was truly fantastical. Akaji was sitting on the windowsill in her traditional outfit, one she had worn so many times in FWO. She was staring out into the busy Kyoto cityscape while smoking a kizaru. Her hair was blown back by the gentle breeze coming through the window. To the girls, she looked elegant, like something out of one of the traditional folk tales they had heard so many times as children. Kana couldn't believe what she saw. Naomi was floored by the quality of the clothing Akaji was wearing, while Mika had sparkles in her eyes. The three girls were stunned into a silence that was only broken when Akaji said, "What's the matter, girls? Do I look that strange?" she asked with a smile.
Spoiler.
Naomi was a member of an old and historically important family. The Tokugawa clan had ruled Japan for 2.5 centuries before it was forced to step down. While culturally and historically significant, the modern-day clan had little in the way of political power and influence. There had been an attempt to revive some of their power by her grandfather and father, but those attempts ended when the rest of her family was killed 6 years ago. Growing up, Naomi's grandfather used to tell her fascinating tales and stories about their clan's history. He told her tales of battle, conquest, love, passion, and glory. The nights when her grandfather told her these stories while she lay in bed are some of her favorite and most important memories. Among these stories, one always stood out to her. It was one her grandfather had told her many times. Since ancient times, stories of yokai and other monsters existing in Japan had been a staple of the storytelling and culture of the islands. Some stories told of horrifying monsters which killed people and tormented them. Others told of yokai who protected people and provided prosperity to their lands. Today, these stories are seen as nothing but fairy tales and fictional accounts used to explain natural phenomena or unusual events. After all, with modern technology, if yokai did exist, why had no one seen them in over 250 years? Why had stories of yokai existing alongside humans vanished after the Meiji Restoration? Naturally, young Naomi had asked her grandfather this very question, and he replied with a story passed down from their ancestors from the Edo period. For all of history, yokai and humans existed side by side. Sometimes they fought, and sometimes they worked together. The yokai thrived in the darkness, while humanity thrived in the light. Over the centuries, the amount of darkness that yokai could live in slowly diminished until virtually none remained. The yokai became afraid, fearful that they would be driven to extinction by humanity. At this point, they knew they could never win a war against us, so they chose another path. In 1836, the commander of the night parade of 100 demons met with Tokugawa Ienari and Emperor Ninko outside of Kyoto. After days of intense negotiations, the shogun and the emperor agreed to give the yokai a place where they could live in peace to end the millennia-spanning conflict.
Naomi's grandfather.
When asked where that place was, her grandfather could only answer that no one knew. He told his granddaughter that they didn't even know if this exchange happened, as they only had an oral legend that was passed down. However, he told her this, that if she ever came across a yokai, she should treat them with the utmost respect. The moment she saw Akaji's form sitting on the windowsill, she recalled her grandfather's stories. You're a yokai, Naomi said with not a shred of doubt. My grandfather used to tell me stories about them, and I never really believed them, but standing here right now.
She gulped. I just know.
I don't know how, but I just do. Wani-chan is a yokai.
Kana yelled. That's so fucking cool. Why didn't you ever tell us, Kana? Mika.
Wait. Wani-chan can't be a yokai. That doesn't make any sense. She's my sister, and I'm not a yokai. And I'm pretty sure neither of our parents are yokai.
Kana.
It was clear that Naomi's sudden declaration had caused quite a bit of confusion.
Ha 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 ha.
Akaji burst out laughing. No, Kana, you're not a yokai, and neither are our parents. Shut the door behind you and take a seat. I guess I have some questions to answer. The girls entered the hospital room and closed the door behind them before finding places to sit.
First things first.
Yes, I am a yokai. Akaji answered with a wry smile.
I knew it. Naomi. Squee. Mika.
Wani-chan, I'm gonna need you to explain how you suddenly became a mythical creature. And explain it in a way I can understand, please. Kana said with a scary look in her eye.
Eep, it's the scary Kana.
Where is the salt when you need it?
Mika remarked.
I don't think salt will be enough. We probably need an onmyoji to keep scary Kana under control. Naomi quipped. Kana responded by giving the two of them the look which caused them to straighten in compliance. Kana, you make me so proud. Akaji. So, I know Kana is aware, but have the two of you heard that some of those who survived FWO had their appearance changed to match their avatars?
Akaji asked.
I heard rumors about it, but I never imagined they were true.
Mika.
I was aware of this. My family's network allowed me to access some of the records of those who had awoken from the game.
Naomi. You can do that? Mika.
I don't really like to talk about it, but yes, Naomi replied with a conflicted expression. Should you be telling us that?
Kana.
If your sister is going to be honest with us, it's only proper that I return that favor.
Naomi.
Interesting, when Kana told me you were from the Tokugawa family, I figured you might have access to more information than the average person.
Akaji mused.
I can confirm that those rumors and the information you gathered were accurate. My appearance now is that of my avatar in FWO. The two girls looked at Kana, who nodded, saying, "One-chan looks very different than before. Here, look." Kana shows the two an image of Akaji on her phone from before she was trapped in FWO.
Wow, she does look different.
Like a lot different.
Mika remarked.
That's a dramatic change. How is that even possible?
Naomi.
As for how, I've got my running theories, but I'll hold off on those for now, Akaji replied. However, what's important is that it wasn't just my appearance that changed, but rather my race changed with it.
Akaji.
Akaji continued. In FWO, everyone started as a human. It was the default race for every new player. The game system for skills and abilities was intended to be dynamic and would allow players to be as creative/unique as possible. If you look at the marketing, this was something they were pushing big time. Akaji stated while twirling her kizuru. This customization went beyond skills and also included one's race. By performing certain actions or taking certain skills, you could unlock a race that was specialized for your needs. For example, someone who wanted to do crafting could nudge the system towards allowing them to be a dwarf or gnome. This race would give bonuses to these skills and would likely give a better gameplay experience if that was what you wanted to do. Akaji continued. Of course, you were free to ignore these race options if you wanted to, they were only a guideline. This customization went beyond a surface-level amount of selectable standard races like elves, dwarves, and the like. Because the system was an extremely adaptable and flexible AI, you could effectively create any race you wanted within reason if you knew how it worked.
Akaji smiled.
Create any race you wanted within reason if you knew how it worked.
Akaji smiled.
This led a few of the more dedicated players like myself to exploit the system until it gave us the perfect race for our build. Akaji continued. In my case, I was an assassin, something which fell under the category of a rogue. I wanted more options for stealth, subterfuge, and the like. The standard races didn't fit what I had in mind, so I spent a great deal of time and effort creating a custom race.
Akaji.
It took many attempts, and I'm pretty sure I pushed the system to the absolute limit of what it would allow. But in the end, I got what I was looking for. Akaji said with a grin. So the race you created was a yokai?
Kana asked.
While I am technically a yokai, I am specifically a Nurari-Hyon, a type of yokai which thrives on illusion, trickery, and darkness.
Akaji.
Hey, isn't that the ugly old man with the big head?
Mika.
That is one depiction of them, but the system was kind enough to work with me on this and allowed me a form more commonly seen in certain fiction I had read.
Akaji.
And there you have it. I can't tell you why this happened, but at the very least, you know that I am indeed a yokai now. Akaji stated while smiling at the girls. I'm sorry for not saying anything sooner, Kana. I had planned on explaining all of this when we got home.
Akaji apologized.
It's okay, I promised myself that I wouldn't push you to reveal anything until you were ready.
Kana smiled.
Akaji looked over at Naomi, who seemed to be struggling with a question in her head. If you have something on your mind, go ahead and ask, I don't mind.
Akaji.
Naomi took a deep breath. This has been a lot to take in. That a game could change someone so dramatically should be impossible. Akaji gave a small chuckle at that. Let me ask you this. She continued nervously. Were your race and appearance the only things that got carried over from the game?
Naomi. Huh?
What are you talking about, Naomi? Mika asked, confused.
Think about it.
She replied, if her appearance and race carried over, couldn't things like her skills or items have been brought here too? For example, those clothes. They look far too expensive and well made for, pardon me for saying this, a family of your standing to afford.
Naomi.
Excellent deduction. I can see why my sister thinks so highly of you, Akaji said while grinning. These clothes are my set from the game, made by the finest imperial tailors in the capital. They cost me quite a bit of money in FWO, but they were worth every coin.
I knew it.
Those clothes look like some of the antiques my family keeps in our collection. I knew there was no way you bought them from some modern shop. The quality is far too good for that. Naomi exclaimed. That's amazing. You got to bring game items into the real world. Mika practically glowed with excitement. One-chan, does that also mean you got to keep all your skills and abilities too? Kana asked pensively. Akaji simply chuckled and proceeded to slowly disappear before their eyes. Her form burned away in black shadow before she finally vanished completely. A/NC how Rikuo Nura disappears in Rise of the Yokai Clan.
One-chan?
Where did you go?
Kana yelled confused.
She just disappeared right in front of us.
Naomi.
That was like something right out of an anime. Mika was very happy. A few moments later, the girls heard a chilling laugh echo throughout the room before Akaji's form reappeared in the same manner in which it had vanished.
How about that? Neat trick, huh?
It's my personal favorite and one that I've gotten a lot of mileage out of over the years. Akaji said while taking another puff from her Kizaru. That's amazing, you can turn completely invisible, Mika commented. Nope, I'm not actually turning invisible. Akaji corrected. That's the first assumption people usually make when they see this ability, but it's wrong.
But
it was clear that the girl didn't understand. At this point, the other players already know, so I don't mind sharing. What I'm doing is essentially overloading your brain sensors with so much information that it blanks out the area where I am. Akaji continued. A person's mind can only handle so much sensory information before it goes haywire. I exploit this by overwhelming it so hard that it has two choices: crash or just pretend it doesn't see the info, and well, it prefers not to crash. So basically, you DDoS our brains?
Kana asked.
Not a bad comparison, except rather than your brain going offline for a bit, it just disregards the info packets.
Akaji.
Then if you have your abilities and items, does that mean other players do too? Naomi asked, looking concerned. Absolutely, Akaji confirmed with a serious expression. If I have all my abilities and items, you can bet that the other 99 players do too.
Akaji. 99?
Why such a specific number?
Kana asked.
Because that was the number of players who were awarded a final reward by the system. If you believe this final reward was returning to the real world as our characters, and I do, then the number of players like me should be 99.
Akaji clarified.
Isn't that dangerous? People are basically running around with game power in the real world.
Mika asked.
Very dangerous, Mika. Naomi replied harshly. Game powers are meant to be ridiculous and over the top. I shudder to think about what Akaji could do with just that one power alone. She said with a fierce look in her eye. She could go anywhere, steal anything.
Or even kill anyone. Naomi.
This girl, why do I get the feeling she wants someone dead? She reminds me of a noble girl who contracted my services.
Akaji.
You're exactly right. If 100 superpowered people are running around the world with game powers, chaos is going to erupt.
Akaji shrugged.
It's only a matter of time until this information leaks. I can imagine governments are gonna scramble to either recruit or eliminate us.
Akaji.
I won't let anyone hurt you.
Kana exclaimed. Ha 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 ha.
You don't need to worry about that, Kana. These idiots might try something, but they're no match for me. After all, delivering death is my specialty. Akaji said with a grin. So my information was accurate, she was an assassin in the game. This works out perfectly, she is exactly who I am looking for. I'll have to speak to her alone at some point. If I'm lucky, she might just help me out.
Naomi.
The three girls spent the next 20 minutes asking Akaji all sorts of questions about FWO, her abilities and other players. Oh yeah, before we forget, didn't you want to ask Akaji about your brother Mika?
Kana.
Ah, you're right, we got so caught up asking about her powers that I forgot to ask.
Mika. Your brother?
Was he in FWO?
Akaji asked.
Yes, his name was Kai Yumanaka, he usually went by Silverwolf online, if that helps, Mika explained. He died about a year into the game and my family, and I would like to know at least how he died. She said with sadness in her eyes. Well fuck, of course, he would have to be her brother. I know exactly who that is, but I'm gonna refrain from answering that for now. I'll have to pull Kana aside later and explain things to her. That's not gonna be a fun conversation.
Akaji.
The name is familiar to me, but I'm sorry I can't really give you an answer.
Akaji.
That's okay, it was a long shot. I'm sure once the other players are up and about I might be able to ask them, she said, clearly still distraught. Thankfully, none of the other living players know how he died, so I have time to figure out how to break the bad news to her. The only problem is that most of the other players know just how fucked up he was. Why did that fucking sicko have to be the older brother of such a sweet girl?
Akaji.
Alright, we should get moving. Mr. Nishizami is waiting for us and it would be rude to waste his time. Plus, we are holding up this room from being used by other patients.
Kana explained. Ah, you're right.
I apologize, I seem to have gotten us a little off track.
Naomi apologized.
The four of them left the room and headed down to the main desk. The sight of Akaji in full traditional clothing surprised most of the staff and patients, but she ignored their looks. After checking out, they all proceeded to the parking area, where their driver was waiting. Sorry, time got away from us and we got a little distracted talking to Akaji.
Naomi.
That's alright, my lady, it's my job after all, and I don't mind waiting for you. I suppose this young woman is Miss Tamagawa's older sister.
Driver.
I am. Thank you very much for taking care of my sister.
I appreciate it.
Akaji said to the driver with a warm smile. Well then, Wani-chan, shall we head home? Kana said, smiling. Let's, Akaji. The drive home was uneventful. The girls refrained from asking more questions about Akaji's abilities, not wanting the driver to overhear them. It wasn't that Naomi didn't trust him, he was aware of her wish, rather it was a sign of respect toward Akaji. A little over 30 minutes later, they arrived in front of the Tamagawa household. It was nothing special and looked like every other house on the block, but it was home, as much as Akaji could call it that. Thank you for the ride, I appreciate it.
Kana.
No problem, and Akaji, thank you for exchanging contact info.
Naomi.
Yeah, we should hang out sometime. Mika, it's only natural, I have to ensure that Kana isn't a bad influence on her friends. She replied with a cheeky smile.
Wani-chan. Kana.
Haha, don't pout, I'm only teasing. Here, I'll pat you on the head, you always liked that.
Akaji.
Kana turns beet red as her sister strokes her head, but she doesn't move to stop her. The car takes off and Kana and Akaji are left alone in front of their house. Well, no sense standing outside. I hope you have the key because I sure don't, Akaji.
Kana sighs.
Wani-chan, sometimes you're just too much to handle. The two open up the front door to the house, and instantly Akaji was reminded of all the time she spent there. She had been away for nearly 4 years, but it didn't seem like much had changed. Suddenly Kana spun around. I've been waiting to say this for 4 years.
Kana started.
Welcome home, Wani-chan, she said with a bright smile. I'm back, Kana, Akaji said as she brought her sister in for a hug. The two stayed like that for nearly a minute before the sound of Kana's stomach broke them apart. I guess that means we should have dinner, huh? Akaji. Yeah, Mom and Dad won't be home till later, so let me make something for us, Kana said, hiding her embarrassment.
Do you want my help?
I got quite good at cooking in FWO.
Akaji asked. Nope.
This is your first dinner home with me, and I want to make it special.
Kana.
Well then, I can't wait to see what you make.
Akaji.
Kana got right to work making dinner. To Akaji's surprise, the girl had improved her cooking ability while she was gone. This wasn't exactly surprising since she likely had to cook most meals for herself without Akaji around. Around 30 minutes later, dinner was complete and they sat down to eat. The food was pretty good for something made at home by a 16-year-old. Akaji had much better food while in FWO, but something about this homemade meal made her believe that there was nothing better. After they finished eating, Akaji asked Kana a question. So, Kana, do you mind if I expand upon an earlier topic? It might not be pleasant, but I'm probably gonna need your input. Akaji asked cautiously. If you're saying it like that, I can't imagine it's something I would normally want to hear about, but you wouldn't bring this up if it wasn't important.
Go ahead. Kana.
Akaji took in a deep breath. I know how Mika's brother died.
Akaji.
After a few seconds, Kana replied. If you didn't answer her at the hospital, I can imagine it's not a pleasant story.
Kana. No, it's not.
Nothing about the situation is pleasant. Let me ask, how much did she care about her brother?
Akaji.
I'm not completely sure since only met her after he died. But from what she's told me and how she acts, probably quite a bit.
Kana. Well, fuck. Akaji cursed.
You killed him, didn't you? Kana asked, already knowing the answer. Yes, I did, Akaji answered without flinching. I can see why you didn't tell her that. I don't imagine that would have gone well. If you don't mind me asking, why did you kill him? Was it a contract or?
Kana asked.
Would have gone well. If you don't mind me asking, why did you kill him? Was it a contract or?
Kana asked. Oh, it was a contract, all right.
A contract to kill one of the most fucked up players in all of FWO.
Akaji. Kana gulped.
Did he really do something that horrible? Akaji looked at her sister and said. Last warning, what I'm about to tell you is not exactly something a 16-year-old should hear. Akaji stared straight at Kana with a stern expression. Whatever it is, I can handle it, Kana replied. Her brother, Silverwolf, was the leader of the worst PK guild in FWO known as the Black Gauntlet. Kana could feel the contempt in Akaji's words. I'm not gonna sit here and act like what I did was above board. I have plenty of blood on my hands, I'm an assassin and killing people is my job.
Akaji.
But those sick fucks. They didn't just kill for a living, they did it for fun. Their little operation kidnapped and killed over 50 players. They didn't care about loot or XP, no, all they wanted to do was get off to the power they held over people. They forced female players to let them have their way with them in exchange for sparing their friends' lives. Of course, they would just turn around and kill their friends and the girl once they were satisfied. Akaji's expression turned dark. That's insane, why didn't the other players step in to stop it?
Kana.
I know what you're thinking, and they tried multiple times. But those bastards were slippery and they had the backing of some pretty important NPCs. Akaji stated. Eventually, it got so bad that I was called in to handle them. After all, it takes a player killer to beat one.
Akaji.
I staked them out for weeks, gathered as much intel as possible, and took them out one by one until only Silverwolf was left, Akaji growled. The contract required that I ensured that son of a bitch knew exactly who ordered him dead. I dueled him, and to be honest, he wasn't that difficult. By that point, I was already finished my build and was far above most other players in terms of level and skills.
Akaji.
He dared to compare us as if a psychopath like him was anything like me, Akaji said with a cold voice.
Remember this, Kana.
While it's true I enjoy the job, I do not enjoy nor condone mindless killing. I have rules and standards, that's what separates me from people like him. I kill because it's my job, people like him kill because they enjoy the act itself and the rush it gives them. Akaji said while staring intensely at Kana. That's a lot to take in, it's almost unbelievable, Kana replied weakly. But it's true, unfortunately, that's the kind of man her brother was. I don't know if it was the game that changed him, and honestly it doesn't matter.
Akaji.
I can't even begin to imagine how to tell Mika this. She's gonna break if we tell her that her brother whom she loved so much was doing such awful things.
Kana.
Kana thought for a second. Not telling her at all might be the best option.
Kana.
Unfortunately, that's not gonna work. We could get away with not telling her that I killed him, as there are only 3 people who know I did the deed. I won't say anything, I imagine you would keep quiet and my client sure as hell wouldn't admit it.
But,
Akaji continued, you're gonna be hard-pressed to keep every player's mouth shut about Silverwolf. It's only a matter of time until that information gets out, and when it does, she's gonna wonder why we didn't tell her.
Kana finished.
Exactly.
Akaji.
She's your friend, so I will leave that decision up to you. Also, if you want her to know that I ended him, that's fine too.
Akaji.
You would tell her that?
Kana was surprised.
I'm not shy about admitting who I've taken out. I kept quiet because of the circumstances, but if you're fine with whatever fallout occurs, then I won't hide it.
Akaji.
Kana was shaken by all this information. She had known Mika for 2 years and she truly valued their friendship. She knew that Mika wouldn't take this information well, she might not even believe it. More concerning was how she would react to learning that Akaji had been the one to kill him. Would she be angry? Happy that he was stopped? There was no way to tell. I need some time to think about this. But, I think it would be best that we tell her ourselves before this goes public. As for whether you should tell her that you killed him yourself, I'm not sure, there are pros and cons to that. Kana was agonizing over this. What kind of older sister am I placing such a heavy decision on a 16-year-old? Sadly, it can't be helped, Mika isn't my friend and I can't make this decision myself.
Akaji.
Well, just let me know what you need me to do, whatever you decide I'll support it.
Akaji.
Just then, Akaji's phone pinged with 2 messages. The first one was from Naomi, asking if she could set up a time to meet with her privately at her family estate. The second one was an unexpected individual. A few seconds after the nurse's urgent call, a voice echoed from the hallway. I'm coming, I'm coming. I'm aware the patient is awake, but shouting hardly seems necessary, Karika. A moment later, the owner of the voice entered, a man in a white coat, clearly a doctor. He strode into the room briskly, only to halt mid-step as his eyes fell on Akaji. He blinked, visibly startled. It took him a moment to recover his professional demeanor.
Well,
he said carefully, I suppose Ms. Rishia having completely different hair and eye color is grounds for some concern.
He turned to the nurse.
Bring me her chart, it should be on my desk.
Amherst.
Akaji studied the man. He wasn't Japanese. Brown hair, graying at the temples, and sharp gray eyes. He looked American, maybe in his mid-40s.
An American doctor? No, that doesn't add up.
That nurse was clearly Japanese. And flying me across the Pacific while trapped in the headset would have been suicide.
Akaji.
At least he spoke fluent Japanese. The man offered a gentle smile. My name is David Amherst. You're at Kyoto Central Hospital. You were moved here with your parents' consent after it became clear that Free World Online's alpha testers were trapped.
His expression darkened.
The UN assembled a task force, doctors specializing in VR treatment and coma care.
Like myself.
He sighed heavily. Not that it helped much, he added bitterly. We could keep your bodies alive, but we couldn't do anything to wake you. We tried to remove the headgear early on, but... Akaji didn't need him to finish.
Yeah. People died.
We figured messing with the gear could kill us, but hearing it confirmed still sucks.
Akaji. Amherst stepped closer.
Are you able to speak? He asked gently. It's normal to struggle after such extreme muscle atrophy. Akaji inhaled slowly. Why yeah, a little difficult, but I can talk.
Akaji.
Relief flickered across his face.
Good.
That makes things easier. Tell me, were you the only one to log out?
Amherst.
In a weak but steady voice, Akaji explained that the assault team had defeated the final world boss and that the system had promised everyone a logout. At first, Amherst smiled, but his smile soon crumbled into a look of deep sadness.
It's good.
It's good that it's over,
he said, voice trembling.
But almost 2,000 dead, and we couldn't save a single one. All our technology, all our breakthroughs, useless. His hands shook slightly. Every day we watched and waited, wondering who would die next. Wondering if there'd be anyone left to save. Tears welled in his eyes. My apologies, he said, wiping them away quickly. You deserve better than to see this mess.
Amherst.
Not long after, Nurse Karika returned carrying a file folder.
Here you are, doctor, she said. Thank you.
Also, contact her family, and reach out to Chief Nakagumo and Dr. Ishihara. Set up a meeting ASAP.
Amherst.
Turning back to Akaji, he softened his voice. Your family will be here soon.
Your sister, Kana, right?
Visited you constantly. She told everyone you were a genius. Said no game could beat you. He chuckled quietly.
Seems she was right. Amherst.
For now, he continued, I need to run some basic checks, nothing invasive, just vitals.
Akaji agreed.
After all, she was just as curious about her condition. The checkup was quick, and Amherst eventually set the equipment aside. Overall, you're stable. Weak, yes, but that's expected. What concerns me most, though.
He paused, hesitating. Your appearance. Your eyes, amber.
Your hair, green mixed with black. Your skin, paler than before. This is, well, different. According to your records, you had black hair and brown eyes.
Amherst.
He gave her a sympathetic look, though confusion lingered in his gaze. Any idea how this could have happened? I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like it. Akaji frowned, thinking. Could I see a mirror?
Akaji.
Amherst nodded and fetched a small portable mirror from across the room. He held it up so she could see herself. Staring back at her was the face she knew intimately. Her FWO avatar. Her real face, as far as she was concerned. She laughed, a full, genuine laugh that startled the doctor. Seeing his alarm, she quickly waved a hand. I'm fine, she assured him, still grinning. In fact, I'm better than fine. This face, she said reverently, is mine. It's the face I saw every day in Free World Online.
It's me.
Maybe, this is the system's reward. If so, I'm definitely not complaining. Akaji. Amherst watched her, struggling between scientific concern and human sympathy. I see, he said carefully. If that's your avatar, I understand why you'd be happy. But, I truly don't understand how such a change could happen. It defies everything we know about VR tech. No physical interaction. No biological link, and yet here she is, changed at the genetic level? This is madness. Ishihara's going to lose it.
Amherst.
Akaji said nothing about Mizumi or the promised reward. She wasn't ready to open that door yet. Once you're stronger, we'll need to run some extensive tests, Amherst said gently. Just to be safe. There could be side effects we don't understand yet. She nodded in agreement. For the next 45 minutes, they went through cognitive tests and memory checks. Finally, Amherst sat back, looking thoughtful. Your memory seems intact, except your original name, he said. Based on everything you've told me, I'd say it wasn't brain damage.
It was disassociation.
You embraced your identity as Akaji so fully that your old name, Rishia Tamagawa, faded away.
Amherst. Rishia Tamagawa, Akaji.
Hearing it aloud stirred no emotion.
No sense of connection.
It felt wrong, a name for a person who no longer existed. Akaji fits me far better.
Always has. Always will.
Akaji. She smiled faintly.
Strange.
Why do I sense someone approaching?
No, 3 people.
It's the same feeling I had when using detect presence in FWO, but that's impossible. Right? She pushed the thought aside for now.
Amherst rose.
Your family should be here any minute. I'll leave you to rest. No restrictions on visiting hours for you, you've earned that much.
He smiled kindly.
Don't overexert yourself. Healing will take time, but you'll get there.
Amherst. Bang. The door flew open.
A girl in a school uniform with a black ponytail burst into the room, tears already welling in her eyes.
One-chan. Kana.
Akaji's heart squeezed painfully at the familiar beloved voice. Ms. Akaji, my master is waiting in here, please enter if you would.
Maid.
The maid then closed the door, leaving Naomi, Marin, and Akaji in the room. Here goes nothing.
Naomi.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with me so quickly, please have a seat, I had Marin prepare some drinks for us.
Naomi.
Akaji sat down across from Naomi and drank some of the tea that was offered. This estate is beautiful, it reminds me of the villas that many of the imperial nobles owned in the capital, Akaji commented. It's strange though, this all seems far too large for just one girl to live in even with staff. Akaji took a sip of the tea. But I guess it makes sense with you being the last surviving member of your family. I am happy that my family home compares well to the nobles of FWO. I can only imagine how remarkable their manners were.
Naomi replied.
As for my family, it's not exactly a secret or anything. 6 years ago, my parents and grandparents were all killed in a burglary. Apparently, they wanted some of the items in our collection, but things turned deadly when my father resisted. I only survived because my mother hid me in one of the hidden rooms. Naomi said with sadness in her eyes. I've been alone since then. Well, not completely, Marin, and the others have been a great help over the years, and Mika and Kana are the best friends I could have ever hoped for. She said with a small smile. It's truly a tragedy what happened to you and your family. I can't imagine what I would do if Kana were taken from me. A small shadow could be seen over Akaji's eyes. I must say I'm glad she made a friend like you, she was always a little bit lonely as a kid. All that brainpower ended up making it hard for other kids to approach her. For the longest time, I was worried she would end up like me. Akaji said while taking a sip of her tea. She is truly a better friend than I deserve.
Naomi smiled.
But was it really a burglary, not a targeted attack? Nothing was reported stolen and there were no signs of forced entry. I got a hold of some police reports and it just didn't sit right with me, that story didn't make sense.
Akaji questioned.
It was also funny to me that the man who ended up getting charged committed suicide at the exact moment his cell cameras malfunctioned. Akaji took out and lit her kizaru, seems more like a cover-up if you ask me. Naomi started lightly sweating. Good, she researched into the incident enough to tell that things are fishy, but I need to be certain she's here as an assassin. There is always the chance she isn't and I can't afford to make assumptions. There's too much at stake for me to get this wrong. I'll give her one more test, just to be sure.
Naomi.
There have been multiple people who have said the same thing over the years, but I assure you that's nothing but a dash. Suddenly, Naomi was interrupted. Naomi, Akaji yelled. Yes. She replied with a yelp. I don't know what kind of a fool you take me for, but I know why I'm here. So cut the crap before you get on my nerves. Akaji growled. Hearing Akaji grow angry, Naomi's facade crumbled.
I messed up.
I got so caught up in questioning if she knew why she was here that I ended up treating her like a fool.
Naomi.
I'm so sorry. Naomi apologized. I wasn't attempting to make light of you, I just wasn't exactly sure how to approach this conversation. You're much different than others I've met over the years, and I couldn't be sure you still wanted to do things like this. I was so worried that if I asked for your help, you would call me crazy. Naomi continued. After all, you were an assassin in a game. Even if killing in that game killed people IRL, it was still a game. What kind of person asks someone who has only killed in VR to do that in the real world? So, I decided to test you and figure out your intentions. However, you saw through me immediately, which made it seem like I was insulting you. I am deeply sorry for that. Naomi stood and bowed her head in apology. I see, well, I guess that's understandable. I'm unusual in this industry after all. Not every day someone makes the leap from VR to IRL assassin, so I'll forgive you. Just know this, whether it's in FWO or the real world, this is my calling and I won't give it up no matter what.
Do you understand? Akaji replied. Naomi nodded.
So, tell me, Naomi, what do you want from me?
Akaji.
Naomi took a moment to compose herself before answering. I want you to wipe out the Mitsahide family in its entirety.
Spoiler.
I want you to wipe out the Mitsahide family in its entirety, Naomi said with absolute certainty in her words. You want me to wipe out the Mitsahide family?
Akaji asked.
One of the most influential families in Japanese politics. A family that contains a former prime minister, the current defense minister, and the sitting speaker of the Diet?
That's a tall order. Akaji.
I know what I'm asking is crazy, but I have no choice. They are responsible for the deaths of my parents and grandparents. It was the Mitsahide family that orchestrated everything 6 years ago. Naomi's expression went dark. During the attack, I saw Nakagumo Mitsahide. He came in after they had dealt with everyone else. My father was restrained by his goons, and he told him that the Tokugawa family should have just been content fading into history. That we should never have attempted to re-enter politics. Naomi continued. I don't know everything, but I think my father and grandfather's investments and political maneuvers posed a threat to his family's power. My father always used to tell me that our family's revival was at hand and we would soon be able to hold our heads high with pride. Naomi began to cry.
But they killed them. For what?
Because they couldn't stand the thought of losing any of their power. Naomi was practically screaming at this point. The only reason I'm still alive is because they don't think they need to kill me. To them, I'm just a powerless girl, the head of a broken family that dies with me. Naomi's face was flush from crying and shouting. I don't care about political power. I don't care about my family's honor or pride or even our history. I don't care what my ancestors did or who they were. None of that ever mattered to me, because more than anything else, we were a family and they took that from me. Naomi continued. I just want them to pay for killing mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa. They didn't deserve to die, they were good people. They were my family and I miss them every day. Naomi began to cry. In a flash, Akaji moved to Naomi's side and pulled her into an embrace. It's all right, Naomi.
It's all right.
Let it out, you've done well to hold on for so long by yourself. You're so strong, but for this moment just let it all out, I'm here for you.
Akaji comforted her.
Hearing this, Naomi cried. Harder than any time ever in her life. Even her personal maid Marin had never seen her lady cry this much before. It was as if 6 years of tears came out all at once. I never knew just how much pain you were in, Naomi. You always put on a brave face, and even though I knew you were hiding your sorrow, I never knew just how bad it was. I am so sorry that you felt that you needed to hide it all, even from me.
Marin.
I've known this girl for a grand total of 4 days, but this truly pisses me off. This poor girl had to deal with this much pain for 6 years with no one to confide in, not even her friends. Honestly, it makes what I went through look trivial by comparison. I wonder if I would have been like this without Kana by my side.
Akaji.
I wonder how much Kana knew about her situation. Probably more than she would let on, but there wasn't much she could do for her. She could only watch as her friend dove deeper into despair. I don't know how much longer this girl could keep going before she broke like I did, and I don't care to find out.
Akaji.
About 10 minutes later, Naomi calmed down and finished crying. Seeing that she was feeling better, Akaji let her go.
Are you all right?
You let it all out, didn't you?
Akaji asked. Sniff.
Yes, I'm all right. I feel much better, better than I have in a long time actually. Naomi made a small smile. Good, I wasn't really sure what to do, so I just kinda acted on impulse. Sorry about hugging you suddenly like that, Akaji said while scratching her cheek. No. That was really nice. In fact, when you did that, it reminded me of how my mother would do that when I was a kid. It took Naomi a few moments to register what she had said before she turned red from embarrassment. Akaji bust out laughing. I think I'm a little young to be your mother, but if it made you feel better, then I don't think I mind the comparison, Akaji said while laughing. Akaji's nonchalant attitude caused Naomi to join in the laughter. She really is kind, isn't she? I can see what Kana was saying about her. Despite that rough exterior, She can be a caring person when she needs to be, can't she? She really does remind me of my mom in that aspect, someone who was warm to her family but tough on her opponents. It's still really embarrassing that I said that to her though.
Naomi.
Once everyone had calmed down and Naomi had regained her composure. So what do you think about my request?
It's too much, isn't it?
The danger is too high and I doubt I can pay you what such a job really requires. I will understand if you decline.
Naomi asked.
I accept your request. Akaji declared with a smirk. I thought so, it really is too much to ask someone to dash. Naomi's brain froze for a second.
Wait, what did you just say? She asked.
I said I accept your request. I will eliminate the Mitsahide family so that you may avenge your family's death, Akaji replied while lighting her kizaru. Both Naomi and Marin were taken aback by this declaration. They honestly expected Akaji to decline. After all, by taking this job she would be making an enemy of the Japanese government and would put her life in jeopardy. That was why every other assassin had declined in the past.
You'll really do it?
Naomi asked pensively. I just said I would now, didn't I?
Akaji. But why?
Doing this will make you an enemy of the state. You understand that your life will forever be in danger if you go through with this. Naomi couldn't understand Akaji's acceptance even if she was happy.
I mean, I am an assassin, aren't I?
If I was afraid of a little government retaliation, I wouldn't be in this business now, would I? I mean, hell, I assassinated many nobles in FWO and even an imperial prince.
Akaji declared.
And before you go saying that's different, need I remind you that not only was death permanent, but the NPCs in that game were essentially sentient AI. That world was as real could be, Naomi, and when it came down to it, the Empire with all its resources, magic and power couldn't do a damn thing to me. Akaji said with confidence.
She's serious.
She believes she can actually do it.
No, she knows. Can do it.
It's not even a question to her.
Naomi.
Then, I look forward to working with you, Akaji. What do we do now? Naomi asked, still shocked.
Well, that's the fun part.
Now we go over the actual contents of the contract.
Akaji grinned.
But first, I'll need my lovely assistant. If you wouldn't mind, Yumi, could you come out for a second? Akaji's shadow seemed to bend and twist for a brief moment before something leaped up and out into the center of the room. Of course, my lord, I am always happy to be of service to you. Standing just off to the side between Akaji and Naomi was a woman whose hair and eyes were a darker shade of green. Their color was almost the same as Akaji's, perhaps slightly lighter. She was dressed as what could only be described as a Miko, Shine Maiden, with a large bow in her hair of the same color. She looked to be the same age as Akaji or slightly younger, and her outfit was black and green like her master's. Allow me to introduce you. Naomi, this is Yumi, my second in command and most trusted assistant. Akaji said with a proud smile. Wait, don't tell me she's a dash. Naomi stuttered out. Yup, in FWO she was an NPC that I made into a follower. Using a little bit of game trickery, I was able to make her into an item that I could summon at will. Akaji continued. And since she was made into an item dash, she was brought into our world. Naomi exclaimed. That's incredible, she made an NPC, a piece of code come to life.
Naomi. And the best part.
Yumi here isn't just some NPC follower, she is a fully trained assassin and is a pro at gathering intelligence. Her help was invaluable on so many occasions. Akaji. Master, I appreciate your praise, but perhaps we should get to the matter at hand first, and then I would ask you to explain more about what's going on and where we are.
Yumi.
Alright, you've been dormant until now so you don't know. I'll explain details later, but for now, this is Naomi. She is a friend of my sister and has contracted me to assassinate the Mitsahide family.
Akaji explained.
I see, please allow me to take notes. Yumi took out a pen and paper and began writing information down. Alright Yumi, have at it, get all the info we need. Akaji. Of course, now Ms. Naomi, please answer these questions.
Yumi.
How many members of the family do you want killed? How do you want them killed? How quickly must they die? What form of payment will you be using for this contract? Do you have any special requests? And many more. Naomi was overwhelmed at first but quickly got her footing. She explained that she wanted every member of the family killed, no matter how old or young. She even requested that members of the family who had married into different households be killed as well as their children. This girl really wants to go for a complete wipe, not like I blame her. Akaji. The total number came out to 16 targets ranging from ages 8 to 87. She asked that they be killed as swiftly as possible and that she didn't care how they were killed. Except, in the case of the family head, she wanted Akaji to inform him and him alone who sent her.
As for the payment,
Going by my master's standard rates, the amount you will be required to pay will come to this much. Yumi showed the calculation in a small notebook. Naomi almost passed out when she saw the number. It was a number far larger than she could ever hope to pay. I'm sorry, there is no way I could obtain that much money. Even if I sold everything my family owns, it wouldn't be enough, Naomi said in anger. Yumi looked at her master. Well, there are always alternative forms of payment. I don't only take money. Akaji added with a grin. I doubt my family has anything that would be valuable enough to cover such a cost. I'm sorry.
Naomi.
Now that's not true. You have something that I want, and I think it would cover the cost. Akaji stated. Naomi was confused. She knew nothing that her family owned was really that valuable. I'll make you a deal. Your family owns a nice little estate outside Kyoto, if I'm not mistaken. From what I know, it's pretty worn down, but you've been maintaining it because it has historical significance as one of the shogun's old villas. Akaji continued.
I want it.
I also want you to assist me in converting the currency I obtained in FWO into something usable in this world.
Spoiler.
Naomi let out a deep breath as she collapsed onto her couch. Akaji had left only minutes beforehand, and it was clear that her meeting with the assassin had taken everything out of her. My lady, are you all right?
Marin asked, concerned. You look pale. Yes, I'm fine.
I just feel strangely tired, as if my entire body has suddenly gone limp. Naomi shook her head. No, not tired. It was as if a weight was lifted off my shoulders and my entire body could truly relax for the first time in so long.
Naomi.
My lady, I'm sorry that I never understood just how much pain you were in. I always knew the death of your parents was hard on you, but I never understood just how much you were dealing with. You always put on such a brave face and a tough outer exterior that I thought you would be fine. I am a complete and utter failure as your assistant. Marin said with a regretful look on her face.
It's not your fault, Marin.
I went out of my way to hide it from you all these years, and I never even attempted to confide in you. I thought that if I showed my pain to you or anyone else, you would believe I was nothing more than a helpless little girl. It's not your fault that I was hiding it.
Naomi replied.
I would never think any less of you, my lady, and I can assure you that goes for everyone else too. Crying and feeling sadness are all natural things. We don't work for you because we believe you to be some unflinching girl with a heart of stone. We work for you because we believe in you. Marin continued. So please, you don't need to hold it in anymore, at least not around me.
Thank you, Marin.
I really can always count on you, can't I? Naomi replied with a laugh. I should have known that all this time, but I doubted you like a fool. The two exchanged warm smiles. Marin had been at Naomi's side since she was a child, and while she was a decade older, she had always seen herself as Naomi's friend first and foremost. That she had survived the events of that night was down to nothing more than luck, as she was in Osaka visiting family. When she heard the news, she flew back to Kyoto in a blind panic, believing that Naomi had perished as well. She was overjoyed that Naomi was still alive, but she could tell that the events of that night haunted her. For months Naomi would wake in the night screaming in terror, reliving the death of her family. Over time, Marin had watched her friend grow colder and more distant, and she began to feel that she might lose her forever. It was 6 months later that Naomi told her what really happened that night. Marin was shocked to hear that it wasn't a burglary gone wrong, but rather an orchestrated hit from Japan's most important political family. Such an assertion seemed outlandish, but Marin never doubted her words. From that day forth, Marin swore to do anything to help the young girl achieve closure. Over the next several years, she helped Naomi to rebuild what her family had left her. Luckily, her father had been preparing her to take over the family business since she was a young girl, so she wasn't completely out of her depth. Naomi expanded her family's business and worked towards building a stable power base that she could use in the future. Marin had assumed that Naomi merely wanted to continue her father and grandfather's legacy and prove herself to both them and the Mitsahide family. However, that impression quickly proved to be wrong. Naomi used her family's connections and wealth to get in touch with the underworld. She involved herself in criminal dealings and more than one illegal trade. The things she was doing would not make her parents proud. Marin thought Naomi had gone crazy and tried to talk her out of such a path, fearing for her friend's safety. When confronted, Naomi told her that she didn't care about the family business, her legacy, or what her parents would think about her. No, she was only interested in one thing: revenge. She told Marin that she wanted the entire Mitsahide family to pay for what they did to her and that she would achieve this goal by any means necessary. Naturally, hearing a 13-year-old tell her that she wanted to commit murder set off alarm bells in her head. At first, she thought about reporting this, but the question was where? She couldn't go to the police, she didn't want Naomi to be arrested, and she had no one who she trusted enough to confide in. She was also afraid of what Naomi would do if she learned that her trust in her was betrayed. In the end, she chose to do nothing and decided that she would help Naomi as much as she could while trying to keep her from going completely off the deep end. When Naomi returned from school on Friday, she told Marin that she had finally found the one who could fulfill her dream. She began to describe a girl called Akaji and her exploits during her time in FWO. Marin had thought that Naomi had finally lost it, as no matter how realistic FWO was, it was a game, not reality. However, when Naomi told her that Akaji had kept all her power and abilities from the game, she became concerned. Not about whether this person existed or whether they had these abilities. No, her concern stemmed from what might happen to Naomi if she achieved her goal. What would she do next? Would she truly be able to live with her decision? All these questions and more flooded her mind as Naomi told her about this girl Akaji. When the day finally came and Akaji arrived, Marin could instantly feel that the woman was dangerous, so much so that she dared not to speak. It was clear that this woman was a professional, easily on par with the others who had come before. However, what Marin could not understand was how a supposedly normal 17-year-old girl could turn into something so frightening in less than 4 years. Naomi had told her before the meeting that she intended to feel out Akaji and test her to see if she was here with the mindset of an assassin. However, it became apparent immediately to Marin that such tests would be seen as an insult to this person. She wanted to interject but found herself frozen in fear when Akaji locked eyes with her. At that moment, it felt like she was being stared at by a predator rather than a person. She was shocked to see Akaji embrace Naomi, and even more so when Naomi allowed herself to cry in her arms. She had never been that intimate with anyone since her mother died, and this made Marin feel like a failure as a friend. Unexpectedly, Akaji agreed to Naomi's request, much to Marin's surprise. When the girl called Yumi explained how much it would cost, she feared what Akaji would ask of her master in return. However, when she told her that she wanted a family property and assistance converting her currency, Marin felt a great deal of relief.
Marin.
Suddenly, Naomi's voice brought Marin out of her thoughts.
Yes. Marin yelped.
I've been calling out to you for a while. What on earth were you thinking about so hard? You had a strange look on your face.
Naomi asked.
Marin flushed red with embarrassment. My apologies, I was thinking about everything that has happened. It's been a lot to process,
she said with a slight stutter.
Might I ask you something?
Go ahead, Naomi replied. What will you do afterward?
I'm scared that once you lose your purpose you'll... Marin couldn't finish her sentence. Naomi took a moment to think before responding. I honestly don't know. I didn't think I would get this far. I've lived my life since that day in pursuit of revenge. Honestly, I didn't really care what happened to me afterward, so I didn't plan for the future. I suppose I will try to continue my family legacy as much as I can out of respect. If nothing else, I will dedicate my life to paying back Akaji for this debt.
Naomi explained.
I have a few ideas that might work. Hey everyone, just wanted to say thank you all for reading my first story. In celebration of breaking 300 views, this first weekend will be double uploads, so 2 chapters Saturday and 2 chapters Sunday. My intention is for chapters to go live at 12:01 midnight EST on release days, so please tell me if things aren't working. Also, if you haven't seen, I updated artwork for chapter 5 and 8, so check those out. You can find my Discord link at the bottom of the chapters in the small author section. Once again, thanks for reading, and I think you're gonna like what coming up. It had been over a month since those trapped in FWO awoke and threw law enforcement across the country into chaos. Detectives were working overtime to interview each victim and collect information to discern who had orchestrated this whole disaster. Each of the 1,047 survivors had been interviewed and questioned, but none had been able to shed light on the perpetrator's identity. At this point, it was looking like they might never know who caused such a tragedy. The FWO incident, as it was dubbed, caused a great shock to Japan. The government's competency was called into question, and Japanese politics became increasingly volatile. Over the last 4 years, there were 3 separate governments, each promising to bring the culprit to justice. However, no matter how much funding or manpower was allocated, law enforcement failed to make any progress. As a result, confidence in Japanese law enforcement was at an all-time low. One might have expected some of the turmoil to die down once the survivors awoke, but this only added fuel to the fire. News of the awakening had only served to reignite the outrage. This was only compounded when a press outlet published classified material that confirmed that some of the players had retained their game abilities in the real world. The panic that erupted put further pressure on the government to act and forestall any possibility of these players becoming a threat to society. In Kyoto, things had been slightly less chaotic. Of the 13 people in the city that were trapped in FWO, only one actually survived. Unfortunately, what local police quickly discovered was that their survivor was the most dangerous of all. Underscore 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 underscore.
Kyoto Police Headquarters.
7:15 a.m., July 30th, 2058. Briefing Room A3. It wasn't uncommon for law enforcement to start their day early, and morning briefings were quite common. However, it was the contents of this meeting and the members present that made it truly unique. Todoroki Nakagumo had been Kyoto's chief of police for nearly 15 years. He was nearly 66 years old and had seen just about everything ranging from serial killers to terrorists. But none of that prepared him for last night's surprise phone call from the Prime Minister and the fallout of what was to come. Good morning, Chief Nakagumo. I apologize for suddenly calling you last night, but we don't have the luxury of time at the moment. Every minute that passes, the general public becomes more restless. Prime Minister Hideki Nakamura spoke through the video call. If things continue like this, I fear the political situation in the country will only deteriorate further. It's no trouble at all, Mr. Prime Minister. Chief Nakagumo replied. I knew that there was some unrest and rioting in Tokyo last week, but have things really gotten that bad?
Chief Nakagumo.
Facing him was a series of monitors, all containing various important government figures from the cabinet, and the military as well as the Speaker of the Diet. While he was alone in the conference room with only his assistant chief at his side. Why the hell didn't I retire last year when I had the chance? I have feeling I won't be going home tonight. Nakagumo sighed internally. Let's make this quick. I would rather not keep all these busy men and women here any longer than they need to be.
He adjusted himself.
Chief Nakagumo, are you aware that some of the survivors of the FWO incident have retained the abilities they acquired in the game? The Prime Minister asked, glaring at him. Of course, I was briefed on this issue as soon as we found out.
Chief Nakagumo.
My officers have been working with Doctors David Amherst and UCI Ishihara in assessing security threats.
He continued.
Although I cannot say we've learned much, as the only subject in Kyoto has been uncooperative.
Chief Nakagumo.
Not only has she been unwilling to talk to us, she disappears constantly, half the time we can't even find her.
Chief Nakagumo.
It's that very subject that has made this meeting necessary, Chief Nakagumo. The Prime Minister said with a glare. Tell me, what do you know about this Rishia Tamagawa, the one some have called Akaji? What have you learned?
Is this a test?
There's no way the Prime Minister doesn't have this information. I hate these games, they're why I stay away from politics.
Chief Nakagumo. Of course, sir. He replied.
We learned that during her time in FWO she killed a total of 104 of the trapped players. She made a living as an assassin and used her skills to that effect. The other players we interviewed expressed fear or disgust towards her of varying degrees.
Chief Nakagumo.
When we learned that some of the survivors had retained their in-game abilities, I had my officers question her again. She confirmed that she could use her abilities, but was unwilling to provide further details. Chief Nakagumo continued. Since she was discharged from the hospital, we have been unable to make any further contact with her. I did order surveillance, but she was able to completely avoid your officers. The Prime Minister finished. Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, I apologize for my and my officers' incompetence. He said while bowing his head. Yes, well, I'm not here to admonish you or your men. That serves no purpose. I convened this meeting because it is obvious that civilian law enforcement is not qualified to handle this.
Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister looked at another participant of the meeting. General Izayama, if you would.
Prime Minister.
An older man looking to be in his 70s began to speak. Chief Nakagumo, from now until the threat from this woman can be eliminated, you and your officers will be under my command. Your men will be folded partially, into the military police of the 1st Rapid Deployment Brigade. Do you understand?
General Izayama.
Yes, sir, but does this mean the government intends to enter into conflict with Ms. Akaji? Based on what I've been told, that seems like Chief Nakagumo stopped himself. My apologies, such things are above my station. As long as you understand that, we'll have no problems. General Izayama gave an unpleasant smile. Additionally, I would like to add that you may not share any information about those with these abilities with any foreign agents or the media, especially those of the United States. Nor is the contents of this operation to be shared with any unauthorized personnel, civilian or military. Disclosure will be conducted on a strictly need-to-know basis. Prime Minister. Yeah, I can imagine the Americans are already breathing down your neck. But, is it really appropriate to keep most of the government in the dark? People really aren't going to like that.
Chief Nakagumo.
Right now, we are trying to put together a team of these returnees, as we are calling them. We can't afford to allow people to run around with such power without any oversight. If possible, we want to put an end to this assassin before she has the chance to cause any damage. Our analysis shows that there is a minimal chance she would be willing to work for us and a high chance of conflict if she is allowed to roam freely. The Prime Minister continued. Thus, we have concluded that eliminating her to ease public anxiety is a matter of grave national importance. Currently, the public is simultaneously furious that we were unable to rescue these people and fearful about the potential damage they may cause. Unfortunately, despite our information quarantine, it has been impossible to prevent news of these individuals with superpowers from leaking to the public. This has resulted in calls for government action, calls that grow louder with each passing day. Prime Minister. Yeah, I recall that press conference. You got destroyed by the media when they asked just what you were doing to combat this potential threat. I guess this means that your half-assed responses didn't cut it and now you're desperate.
Chief Nakagumo.
General Izayama, I want you to put together a threat assessment of the one called Akaji. I want you working with Army Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense Nagumo Mitsahide. The Prime Minister continued. You are authorized to use whatever means necessary to bring her down. We need this win, and I don't care how you do it.
Prime Minister. Of course, sir. General Izayama.
Chief Nakagumo, I want you to work with Speaker Mayuri Mitsahide. You are to assist in keeping the Select Committee on State Defense informed of all developments related to this operation.
Prime Minister.
It will be a pleasure working with you. The voice of the older woman could be heard through the video call. Likewise, Madam Speaker.
Chief Nakagumo.
Great, I try my whole life to stay away from politics and now I'm being thrust right into the middle of the lion's den.
Chief Nakagumo.
That was everything I had to discuss. Those whom I did not specifically mention will receive a separate briefing at a later date. The Prime Minister continued. Thank you for sharing your time, Chief Nakagumo. I will be in touch if I have anything else, and have a nice day. The Prime Minister and the other members began to disconnect. Chief Nakagumo, could I trouble you for a moment? Speaker Mayuri had stayed behind. How could I be of help, Madam Speaker?
Chief Nakagumo.
There are some people who've been seen around this Akaji. People that my family has some interest in. Naturally, this is also for the good of Japan, but I would like you to place some surveillance on them as well.
Mayuri said.
We might just be able to use them to help bring this Akaji woman down. Of course, if you believe it to be important to national security, then I will have my men on it immediately.
Chief Nakagumo.
Did I ever mention how much I fucking hate politics?
Chief Nakagumo.
Good, I look forward to working with you. Goodbye. Mayuri closed the connection. Chief Nakagumo was now left with just him and his assistant chief in the conference room. Our officers are not gonna like working with the military. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a whole lot quit over this.
Assistant Chief.
It can't be helped, we're in no position to deny them and the public already believes us to be worthless. Besides, if we're going to be dealing with superpowered teens, we're way out of our league. Chief Nakagumo said, completely exhausted. I'm really too old for this, you know. I knew I should have taken my retirement last year. I can imagine you do. I certainly didn't sign on to conduction operations with the military when I went to the police academy. The assistant's chief said with a chuckle before continuing. Do you really think the government intends to go to war over this Akaji girl? I've read her file, she most certainly has a dangerous track record in the game, but isn't all this effort overkill for one person? Especially when said person hasn't actually done anything yet. The assistant chief was clearly confused. Nakagumo thought for a moment while he pulled a cigarette carton from his jacket pocket.
Son, let me tell you this.
In my 40-plus years in law enforcement, there have only been 2 times I've seen the government take such rash actions. He lit a cigarette. The first was during the series of terror bombings in the wake of the 2022 Tokyo Olympics.
He takes a puff.
And the second was during the 4th Taiwan Strait crisis in 2033. Do you know what the common thread between those 2 incidents is?
Nakagumo asked.
The assistant chief thought for a moment. Was it the general public's fear? I don't remember the bombings, but I remember everyone being terrified thinking we would be dragged into a war with China, he answered. Chief Nakagumo held his cigarette in his hand and continued. That was part of it, but no. While it's true that the public is afraid of these returnees, and what they could do with their abilities, it's not the primary reason the government is acting this way. You see, both those aforementioned incidents occurred when the government was destabilized due to pre-existing internal issues. In 2022, the Prime Minister's cabinet was already dealing with scandals and internal unrest due to economic disruption.
Chief Nakagumo.
So, to try and boost polling numbers, the government implemented a harsh crackdown to find the ones behind the bombing. The responses were heavy-handed, but ultimately were nothing more than a show of force. Nakagumo said, taking another puff. Funny enough, that Prime Minister went on to lose his seat in the next general election. So much for his big plan. Nakagumo chuckled. They were hoping the public would see the government taking some big decisive action and forget about some of the other troubles. At least long enough for the next election to come and go. Chief Nakagumo said while smoking. In 2033, the government was in a similar state of dysfunction leading up to the crisis. Once again, the ruling coalition feared losing power and tried to distract people from the troubles at home by directly supporting the American task force in the South China Sea.
Chief Nakagumo.
This time is no different. Ever since those people became trapped in that game, the public has been outraged, and now that some of them are running around with crazy powers, people are scared too. If you couple that with some of the economic issues, it's no wonder they're feeling the heat. The bigwigs in the government are terrified at the thought of being ousted over this whole debacle. None of them want to be left with the bag.
Nakagumo laughed.
That's why they're throwing down the gauntlet like this. It doesn't matter that this woman Akaji hasn't actually done anything yet. The government is going to use the fact that she could be a threat to try and drum up popular support when they take action against her.
Chief Nakagumo.
They might genuinely fear her power, but right now they see her more as a ticket to saving their political careers. Being in power when such a dangerous individual is brought to justice tends to help polling numbers. I bet they intend to fully release all their information on her time in FWO once she's dealt with. They'll play it up in the media as the government getting justice for all those people she killed and stopping her from killing more in the future.
Chief Nakagumo.
But aren't they taking a massive risk? If this woman is truly as dangerous as the stories say, the assistant chief is interrupted. Then their political career is the last thing they should be worried about. Chief Nakagumo said with a serious voice.
Spoiler.
My lord, it would seem that surveillance of our movements has increased in these last few weeks, Yumi said while sitting down next to Akaji. The two were currently in the garden of Akaji's new estate courtesy of the Tokugawa family. Yumi had prepared sake and the two began drinking together. It had been a little over a week since Naomi had turned the property over to her and Akaji had been spending most of her time here, sorting out living arrangements and making improvements and changes where necessary. The estate was essentially a feudal Japanese manor with the main house surrounded by wooden exterior walls. It had a pond, a small garden and a few other buildings such as a servant's quarters. It was large by Japanese standards and covered quite a lot of the mountainside, enough that one could even call it a compound. Akaji was surprised that Naomi was able to transfer the property quite quickly, but apparently, while it was considered historically significant, the Tokugawa family still owned it and the land itself outright. Chloe has reported an increase in police activity as well as military presence in and around Kyoto. From what her team has gathered, it appears that the Japanese government intends to make some kind of move against you. Yumi said, handing a sake cup to Akaji.
Thank you.
Akaji thanked Yumi and the two sat down on the blanket Yumi had prepared. After agreeing to Naomi's request, Akaji deployed many of her subordinates to gather intelligence. At present, 47 of her followers were deployed on 3 separate missions. The first group, headed by Chloe, was tasked with keeping an eye on the situation in Kyoto. Akaji had assumed that the Japanese government would begin to make moves against those who had retained their powers from FWO and wanted to be informed on their movements. To further add to her concerns, Hisha told her that some of the players she knew IRL had disappeared. Hisha couldn't be sure it was the Japanese government that was involved. However, Their disappearances always coincided with suspicious activity. Hisha herself was under almost constant surveillance, and on more than one occasion, she had to request that her privacy be respected. Naturally, they had attempted to put Akaji under surveillance as well, but the government found markedly less success with this endeavor. I knew the government wouldn't exactly sit on its ass forever, Akaji said while sipping some sake. To be honest, they were faster than I expected, and here I thought the government was supposed to be slow and cumbersome. Akaji said with a wry smile. Was Chloe able to ascertain exactly what they intend to do? Because that's going to determine our next course of action.
Akaji asked.
I don't exactly want an all-out war with the Japanese government, but it wouldn't be the first to pick a fight with me.
Akaji.
From what her report said, they are determined to enter into some kind of conflict with you. Apparently, they intend to provoke you into taking some drastic action so that they can look justified in the use of force.
Yumi explained.
Although, I doubt they would launch any direct offensive action, as doing so would be quite unlikely to succeed even if they have a few players on their side. Akaji and her team were quite adept at combat. Even if the military decided to strike them, chances are they would be annihilated. Apparently, they don't intend to allow any of the returnees, as they are calling those who retain their abilities, to run around freely. Chloe's report said they are giving people two choices: work for the Japanese government or...
Yumi trailed off.
So basically, they know they won't be able to recruit me, so they want me to fly off the handle so they can crush me.
All that for what?
To show people that the government has a handle on the situation? Is provoking all-out war really the best idea they could think of in this situation? She sighed at the absurdity. What a stupid idea. Politics really is the same whether it's in the game or the real world. I bet they want to use this as some political football to keep power, right? Akaji growled in irritation.
Akaji.
Yumi agreed with her master's conclusion. Based on what Chloe brought me, I would say that seems highly likely. Akaji shook her head in disbelief. Politicians being desperate to hold on to power, I guess the game and real life really weren't much different in that aspect. Though the Empire tended to be much more direct with its methods. If you caught their attention, you could kiss your freedom goodbye. Akaji said with a shrug. Although when they tried applying that strategy to players, it didn't exactly work out as they expected. Akaji snickered, remembering how players had utterly crushed the Empire's attempt to control them. I must say that it is not us who I worry about, my lord. From everything I've seen, I doubt the Japanese government would be much more of a threat than the Empire. However, what does concern me is that in addition to taking measures to surveil you, they have been increasing surveillance on your sister, as well as Mika and Naomi. If I would have to guess, they intend to involve them in this situation. Yumi said with a concerned look in her eyes. Let them. If they're stupid enough to actually go after those girls, then I'll give them exactly what they're looking for. Akaji said with a wide grin.
Yes, well.
What order shall I give the shadows currently guarding them? At present, they've been told to remain hidden unless the girls' lives are in danger. Yumi had seen the look in her master's eye before, and it always involved trouble. If the girls are taken by government agents, the shadows should prioritize their safety, but otherwise let things play out how the government wants.
Akaji smiled.
All we have to do is sit back and give them the rope with which to hang themselves.
Akaji.
Okay, I will pass that along and tell the shadows to alert you to any changes in the girl's condition. If they're taken, we'll know right away. Yumi said, crossing something off her list. Just do me a favor and keep this a secret. I can't imagine they would be too pleased being used as bait. Akaji said while scratching her cheek. No, I can imagine not.
Yumi.
If that is what you desire, then I shall remain silent.
Yumi.
Now, I would like to move along to the main topic. Yumi continued. Preparations are nearly complete for the takedown of the Mitsahide family. Team 2, led by Marshall, has successfully infiltrated each of the family residences of the 16 members of the Mitsahide family we have been tasked with eliminating.
Yumi.
Marshall reported that security is tight for Speaker Mayori Mitsahide, Secretary of Defense Nagumo Mitsahide, and former Prime Minister Ruji Mitsahide. Yumi continued while flipping through her notes. These three all live within relatively secure compounds, with the former Prime Minister living with his son Nagumo and his family.
Yumi.
Most of the family resided in Tokyo, with a few scattered throughout the rest of Japan. Akaji and her subordinates would strike simultaneously to eliminate the entire family in one stroke. Since Naomi wanted special treatment for Nagumo, I suppose you and I will handle his place, Akaji added.
Yes, that was the plan.
The rest of the family members live in relatively lax security environments, so they will be easy to dispatch. Marshall and his team will deal with Speaker Mayori and her family, while the other teams dispatch the lower priority targets.
Yumi.
It shouldn't be too much longer until preparations are complete. We'll be ready to begin on your orders.
Yumi.
Good, but we should wait to see what the government does. If we're lucky, they try to kidnap the girls in the next week or so. Perhaps we could even feed them a little false intel to light a fire under their asses. Akaji said while lighting her kizaru. If we do this right, we rescue the girls, then take out the Mitsahide family. From the government's perspective, it will look like retaliation for messing with me. That should steer any investigation away from Naomi and also put the fear of God in them. She said, letting out a puff of smoke.
That's quite a good idea.
I must admit, I thought it was highly likely that Naomi would find herself in a great deal of trouble once we were done. On a list of suspects, she would be quite high up due to her connection to you. Yumi said with a smile. But, I will say it's unusual for you to care about a client's well-being like that. Don't tell me you've gone soft.
She said with fake shock.
Very funny. Akaji said with the pipe in her mouth. No, it's more like if something happens to Naomi, Kana would be sad, so I'll do what I can to prevent that from happening. Akaji replied while shaking her head. If Naomi gets herself into trouble after this, that's her problem, but in this instance, let's consider this an extra service.
Akaji.
Okay, then let's go over a few other items I had while we wait for lunch. It should be ready soon.
Yumi said. About 5 days later.
In one of the Kyoto Police Department's conference rooms, Chief Nakagumo just began a meeting with General Izayama and Secretary of Defense Nagumo. Chief Nakagumo, I have been informed that the target has left the city and is currently residing at an estate near Enryakuji. According to our intel, she arrived there several days ago to assume ownership and won't be back for some time.
Nagumo continued.
If we're going to launch Operation Broken Blade now is as good a time as any.
Nagumo.
Indeed, we currently have eyes on the target's sister and her 2 friends. It will be a simple mission for my men to swoop in and grab the 3 of them. General Izayama said with a cold smile. Chief Nakagumo interjected. I would like to remind you, General, that those 3 girls are just children. Please handle them with care. If possible, we should aim to perform this operation with as little force as possible. If we can bring them in peacefully, I humbly request that you do so. Chief Nakagumo asked while bowing his head. What's going on with this world? Have we fallen so far that we need to kidnap our own citizens, children no less? Those girls aren't much older than my granddaughter, they shouldn't be involved in this mess. I just hope things don't escalate to violence, I don't want them caught in the crossfire.
Nakagumo.
I would second Chief Nakagumo's opinion, if possible they should be brought in peacefully.
Nagumo continued.
But if they resist, bring them in by any means necessary. This operation is too important. If we have to run cover over this, then so be it. Nagumo said with a serious expression. I will instruct my men to bring them into protective custody. We will inform them that there is a credible threat to their safety and that a temporary relocation will be necessary. If they're smart, they will come along quietly and we won't have to harm them.
General Izayama.
Protective custody, sure, you're planning on placing them within a military lockup. There isn't even any guarantee that these girls will see the light of day. Don't try and play the nice guy, I've been to all these meetings.
Chief Nakagumo.
That's good to hear. If possible, I would like to be present on the ground when we bring them it. I've been Kyoto's police chief for 15 years, the girls might be more comfortable with me than your soldiers.
Chief Nakagumo.
That sounds reasonable to me.
General. Nagumo.
Yes, that sounds fine.
General Izayama.
It was clear that these 2 men didn't care about what happened to the girls. Then please act with haste. I want this whole operation completed ASAP. Time is not on our side. Nagumo said as he disconnected. Chief Nakagumo, please prepare your men and be ready to strike as soon as my preparations are complete. We will aim to target the girls when they leave school together. We know they tend to venture into Shijo Kawaramachi, so we will plan to strike then. General Izayama disconnected. Chief Nakagumo let out a sigh. Crazy how they even know these girls' after-school schedule. It's honestly creepy how much surveillance they had on them. Chief Nakagumo took out a cigarette and lit it. Once this ordeal is over, I'm retiring. I can't take this anymore. Chief Nakagumo sat in the conference room alone for nearly 30 minutes as he emptied his pack of cigarettes.
Spoiler.
Alright, it's finally the weekend. Mika said, jumping out of her seat. The girls had planned on spending the weekend at Akaji's new home, ostensibly to study, but also because they were genuinely curious.
Kana walked over to her.
I know you're excited, but don't forget we're going to One-ichan's new house to study, not just play. Mika had been excited about this trip all week.
I know. But it's pretty exciting, is it?
After all, your sister's house is like some crazy yokai mansion. She even told me I could meet a Yuki Onna. Mika had been really looking forward to this weekend.
A real Yuki Onna Kana.
You know how much I love them. Akaji had spent most of these last 2 weeks at her new house near Enryakuji Temple. Kana was surprised that her sister was moving out, but ultimately thought it was for the best. Her parents had become much more uncomfortable with Akaji living in the house recently, and she could feel the tension between them and her sister. She knew their relationship was irrevocably broken, but could only feel sadness seeing how they acted towards Akaji. However, when her sister told her she was moving out, she expected an apartment, not a historical estate. One that belonged to Naomi no less. When questioned, Akaji told her that she purchased it using the funds she acquired in FWO, but Kana felt something was off about the whole situation. Naomi had known Akaji for less than a month, so it was quite strange that she would just sell a family property to someone she had only just met. Nevertheless, she refrained from prying too deeply out of respect for her sister and her friend. Yes, I know just how much you love the stories about Yuki Onna. You have countless plushies of them in your room after all, Kana said while shaking her head. I won't deny that I'm also interested in meeting more of One-ichan's friends, but don't forget that prepping for exams comes first.
Kana.
Boo-boo, I don't want to study.
Mika complained.
Naomi walked over to the two of them and asked. We're going to your house first, right Kana?
Naomi.
Yeah, One-ichan said she would come to pick us up when she was ready, so we should have a few hours.
Kana nodded.
And Mika, need I remind you that you only barely passed the practice exam? Do you really want to have to take makeups again? What am I going to do with this girl? Kana sighed internally. Mika responded by puffing out her cheeks. It still baffles me that your sister can move between such faraway places so quickly. On top of that, she can hide in plain sight, fly and even teleport. Is there anything your sister can't do? Naomi said while rubbing her temples. If it has anything to do with gaming I would say no, and since this does. Kana gave a defeated look. I think we should just give up on trying to maintain our normal common sense when it comes to One-ichan and her abilities. At this point I don't think anything One-ichan could do would shock me, Kana. The girls were shown of some of Akaji's more advanced powers and abilities. Needless to say, they were both impressed and astonished by what she could do. It gave the impression that she was the most powerful of all FWO's players, a notion that Akaji quickly shut down. Akaji said while that she was the best at subterfuge, stealth and likely had the highest speed of any player, Hisha packed the most firepower. Then does that mean we'll have some time before we leave? I would like to do a little shopping downtown if that's alright. Mika perking back up.
I don't mind.
Naomi, is that fine with you?
Kana turned to Naomi.
Sure. Who knows, maybe I'll come across something neat. The girl said with a smile. Then what are we waiting for, let's go. Mika said while taking off down the hallway.
Kana sighed.
Where does she get all that energy from? A few seconds after the nurse's urgent call, a voice echoed from the hallway. I'm coming. I'm aware the patient is awake, but shouting hardly seems necessary, Karika. A moment later, the owner of the voice entered, a man in a white coat, clearly a doctor. He strode into the room briskly, only to halt mid-step as his eyes fell on Akaji. He blinked, visibly startled. It took him a moment to recover his professional demeanor.
Well,
he said carefully, I suppose Ms. Rishia having completely different hair and eye color is grounds for some concern.
He turned to the nurse.
Bring me her chart, it should be on my desk.
Amherst.
Akaji studied the man. He wasn't Japanese. Brown hair, graying at the temples, and sharp gray eyes. He looked American, maybe in his mid-40s.
An American doctor? No, that doesn't add up.
That nurse was clearly Japanese. And flying me across the Pacific while trapped in the headset would have been suicide. Akaji. At least he spoke fluent Japanese. The man offered a gentle smile. My name is David Amherst. You're at Kyoto Central Hospital. You were moved here with your parents' consent after it became clear that Free World Online's alpha testers were trapped.
His expression darkened.
The UN assembled a task force, doctors specializing in VR treatment and coma care.
Like myself.
He sighed heavily. Not that it helped much, he added bitterly. We could keep your bodies alive, but we couldn't do anything to wake you. We tried to remove the headgear early on, but Akaji didn't need him to finish.
Yeah. People died.
We figured messing with the gear could kill us, but hearing it confirmed still sucks.
Akaji. Amherst stepped closer.
Are you able to speak? He asked gently. It's normal to struggle after such extreme muscle atrophy. Akaji inhaled slowly. Why yeah, a little difficult, but I can talk.
Akaji.
Relief flickered across his face.
Good.
That makes things easier. Tell me, were you the only one to log out?
Amherst.
In a weak but steady voice, Akaji explained that the assault team had defeated the final world boss and that the system had promised everyone a logout. At first, Amherst smiled, but his smile soon crumbled into a look of deep sadness.
It's good.
It's good that it's over,
he said, voice trembling.
But almost 2,000 dead, and we couldn't save a single one. All our technology, all our breakthroughs, useless. His hands shook slightly. Every day we watched and waited, wondering who would die next. Wondering if there'd be anyone left to save. Tears welled in his eyes. My apologies, he said, wiping them away quickly. You deserve better than to see this mess.
Amherst.
Not long after, Nurse Karika returned carrying a file folder.
Here you are, doctor, she said. Thank you.
Also, contact her family, and reach out to Chief Nakagumo and Dr. Ishihara. Set up a meeting ASAP.
Amherst.
Turning back to Akaji, he softened his voice. Your family will be here soon.
Your sister, Kana, right? Visited you constantly.
She told everyone you were a genius. Said no game could beat you.
He chuckled quietly. Seems she was right. Amherst.
For now, he continued, I need to run some basic checks, nothing invasive, just vitals.
Akaji agreed.
After all, she was just as curious about her condition. The checkup was quick, and Amherst eventually set the equipment aside. Overall, you're stable. Weak, yes, but that's expected. What concerns me most, though.
He paused, hesitating. Your appearance. Your eyes, amber.
Your hair, green mixed with black. Your skin, paler than before. This is, well, different. According to your records, you had black hair and brown eyes.
Amherst.
He gave her a sympathetic look, though confusion lingered in his gaze. Any idea how this could have happened? I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like it. Akaji frowned, thinking. Could I see a mirror?
Akaji.
Amherst nodded and fetched a small portable mirror from across the room. He held it up so she could see herself. Staring back at her was the face she knew intimately. Her FWO avatar. Her real face, as far as she was concerned. She laughed, a full, genuine laugh that startled the doctor. Seeing his alarm, she quickly waved a hand. I'm fine, she assured him, still grinning. In fact, I'm better than fine. This face, she said reverently, is mine. It's the face I saw every day in Free World Online.
It's me.
Maybe, this is the system's reward. If so, I'm definitely not complaining.
Akaji.
Amherst watched her, struggling between scientific concern and human sympathy. I see, he said carefully. If that's your avatar, I understand why you'd be happy. But, I truly don't understand how such a change could happen. It defies everything we know about VR tech. No physical interaction. No biological link, and yet here she is, changed at the genetic level? This is madness. Ishihara's going to lose it.
Amherst.
Akaji said nothing about Mizumi or the promised reward. She wasn't ready to open that door yet. Once you're stronger, we'll need to run some extensive tests, Amherst said gently. Just to be safe. There could be side effects we don't understand yet. She nodded in agreement. For the next 45 minutes, they went through cognitive tests and memory checks. Finally, Amherst sat back, looking thoughtful. Your memory seems intact, except your original name, he said. Based on everything you've told me, I'd say it wasn't brain damage.
It was disassociation.
You embraced your identity as Akaji so fully that your old name, Rishia Tamagawa, faded away.
Amherst. Rishia Tamagawa, Akaji.
Hearing it aloud stirred no emotion.
No sense of connection.
It felt wrong, a name for a person who no longer existed. Akaji fits me far better. Always has. Always will. Akaji. She smiled faintly. Strange. Why do I sense someone approaching?
No, 3 people.
It's the same feeling I had when using detect presence in FWO, but that's impossible. Right? She pushed the thought aside for now.
Amherst rose.
Your family should be here any minute. I'll leave you to rest. No restrictions on visiting hours for you, you've earned that much.
He smiled kindly.
Don't overexert yourself. Healing will take time, but you'll get there.
Amherst. Bang. The door flew open.
A girl in a school uniform with a black ponytail burst into the room, tears already welling in her eyes.
One-chan. Kana.
Akaji's heart squeezed painfully at the familiar beloved voice.
Hey guys.
Is it just me, or are we the only people on this street? Mika asked out of the blue.
What do you mean?
Naomi turned from her conversation with Kana. This is downtown Kyoto. There's no way that Naomi looked around slightly startled. The street, which should have been filled with shoppers and commuters, was empty.
What's going on?
There were just people here a minute ago, weren't there? How could there be an empty street at this hour? Where did everyone go? Downtown Kyoto was never this empty even at night. Did we maybe go on to a street that's supposed to be closed? I'll admit I wasn't exactly paying attention to where we were going. Kana said with a guilty look. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't know. I feel like we would have noticed a sign that said do not enter, especially if everyone else did, Mika responded. It would have been pretty obvious. I don't like this. It's quiet, far too quiet for Kyoto in the middle of the day, Naomi said with a slight nervousness in her voice. Let's pick up the pace a bit. If we aren't supposed to be here, we should clear out ASAP.
Naomi. Right. Mika and Kana.
The three girls sped up their pace, not wanting to be caught on the empty street if they weren't supposed to be here. A strange sense of foreboding came over the three of them, as if they could almost sense what was about to happen. Suddenly, a large black van pulled out from one of the streets in front of them, blocking their path. The girls stumbled back, almost falling over each other. A few moments later its doors swung open and in a flash, 6 armed men disembarked and surrounded the girls. Once they had gotten in position, an older gentleman disembarked from the van, someone that the girls had seen before. He walked up to the girls, cigarette in hand, and said, My apologies for startling you three. You likely know who I am, but I will introduce myself anyway. My name is Todoroki Nakagumo. I'm Kyoto's chief of police. He said while showing his ID badge.
Kana was the first to speak. Why yes.
I recognize you. I've seen you on news conferences a few times. Can you explain exactly why you have us surrounded by armed officers? I don't think we did anything to warrant such force being used against us. The officers were armed but had yet to train their weapons on the girls. If this is about being on a street we're not supposed to be, we're sorry, we must have missed the do not enter sign. Mika said while shaking slightly. Do not enter sign? Chief Nakagumo was confused for a moment. I have no idea what you're talking about, and that's not really important. The reason me and these men are here is that we've been ordered to take you three into protective custody. He said as he dropped his cigarette and stamped it out. Protective custody.
Mika shouted. Protection from what? Is someone after us?
Kana interjected. No way, if there was, One-chan would have said something. She looked at Chief Nakagumo.
Who are we being protected from?
I can't imagine that someone could be targeting us and evade One-chan's detection. Kana said with absolute certainty. I don't know everything about her abilities, but I know for a fact that she has eyes everywhere. If someone really was after us, she would have told us or even taken action herself.
Kana.
Yes, well, I cannot give you details as most of it is classified, but I can tell you that this does involve that sister of yours. I ask that you make this easy on everyone and come with us.
He said with a soft voice.
And if we refuse?
Naomi asked.
I don't think you're in a position to refuse. He gestured to the men surrounding them. Listen, I've been ordered to take you in with or without your cooperation. But I can say if you come with me, willingly, things will be better for both you and your sister. He said with a dark look in his eye. I don't want to get rough with children, honestly the very thought itself sickens me, but I have a job to do.
Please understand.
He was almost pleading with the girls.
Kana began sweating.
He was right, there wasn't anything they could do. If they refused, these men would just take them anyway, most likely after knocking them out, and who knew what else they would do to them. For now, the best that they could do was oblige Chief Nakagumo and hope their cooperation bought them some goodwill. They're after One-chan, aren't they? They want to use me as a hostage against her. Damn it, why am I so weak? Is that all I am?
A burden?
Something to be used against her? Someone she will have to be worried about protecting? I know she would tell me I'm wrong, but I hate the thought of dragging her down because I'm helpless. I've even dragged Mika and Naomi into this too.
Kana.
Kana looked at Chief Nakagumo. If I go with you willingly, can you let the two of them go? They have nothing to do with this. Kana pleaded for her two friends. He thought for a moment before responding. Sorry, but my orders are to bring all three of you in. I can't do that. Chief Nakagumo gave a conflicted look. Kana looked back at her friends. I'm sorry, you got dragged into this because of me. She was distraught at the thought of her friends being harmed because of her.
It's okay, Kana, it's not your fault.
It's theirs for resorting to such methods. You can't be blamed for the actions of these disgusting people.
Naomi said with contempt.
Yeah, what she said, Mika said while hiding behind Naomi. She was happy her friends weren't angry with her, but it still didn't make her feel any better. I see, Chief Nakagumo, I guess we'll come with you. She looked him in the eye. But just know when Wani-chan finds out what you're doing. She paused for a few seconds. I hope you will be ready to face the consequences, Kana said with a fiery look in her eye. Miss Kana, I prepared myself for that a long time ago when I joined the academy. He said while turning towards the van.
You heard them, boys.
Treat them with care, they're under our protection after all. He said with a sigh. The three girls were ushered into the back of the van. They weren't handcuffed or restrained, but they did have their electronics confiscated. Much to Mika's displeasure, even her new AR system was taken. During the drive, the soldiers and Chief Nakagumo were silent, saying nothing about where they were headed or what would happen once they arrived. It was an awkward and uncomfortable experience for everyone. Where are they taking us?
A police station or maybe a military base?
I guess it doesn't really matter.
Kana.
After a 20-minute ride, the van arrived at the gates of Camp Katsura. The guards let them inside and the large metal gates clanked as they closed behind the van. Once they were cleared for entry into the underground section of the base, they came to a stop just in front of what looked like an entrance. Chief Nakagumo stood up and looked at the girls. All right, we're here. You girls are going to speak with the base's Commander General Izayama, per his request, before you're placed in holding cells. Don't do anything rash, there's no escape from this place, and I don't want to see you get hurt.
Understand. Chief Nakagumo.
The three girls could only nod, but their eyes told him how they felt about him. Good. Captain, could you please take it from here? I believe my job is done and I'm going to head back to my office. I have other work that needs to be done. Chief Nakagumo said while disembarking. Yes sir, I can take it from here.
Captain.
Chief Nakagumo walked away from the van, lighting another cigarette and headed towards his parked car. He intended to get as far away from this mess as possible. He couldn't bear be a part of this farce for a moment longer. I'm sorry girls, this is the best I could do. I don't expect to be forgiven for this by you or anyone else. Hopefully, General Izayama defies my expectations and you actually get to go home when this is over.
Chief Nakagumo.
A few minutes and one elevator ride later, Chief Nakagumo entered and started his car before letting out a deep sigh.
All right.
I'm still police chief, I have work to do and I can't let others see me in such a sorry state. He took a minute to psych himself up. Just a little bit more and I can bow out with honor. He drove out of the garage and left the base, heading towards his office.
I know. He began to talk to himself.
We should go on a family trip to Hawaii to celebrate my retirement. I know Sayori would like to go there again, and I'm sure Miyako and Kimiko would love it, he said as he gripped the steering wheel tightly. Kimiko, next time I see you, Grandpa's gonna give you the biggest hug in the world. Chief Nakagumo drove down Kyoto's main street before turning onto a road that took him straight into his building's parking garage. As he turned down this road, he noticed something strange. A fog had suddenly covered the road, obscuring most of his vision.
A fog?
At this time of day? In this part of Kyoto? That doesn't make any sense. What the hell is going on?
Chief Nakagumo.
Chief Nakagumo was confused. He had never seen such a localized fog before, especially not in the city itself. Undeterred, he continued driving down the road, being especially careful to avoid pedestrians or other cars. Eventually, he arrived at the entrance of his building's garage and drove inside, quickly reaching his private parking spot. However, not only did the fog persist within the garage, it got worse. The sun's light, which should illuminate the inside of the garage, was reduced to mere bands piercing through the fog. Once he turned off the vehicle, he had the strange feeling that he wasn't alone. His many years as a beat cop and a detective told him something was wrong. I don't like this. It feels like something's out there watching me, waiting for me.
Chief Nakagumo.
He peered over his dashboard and looked into the foggy garage, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was causing this feeling. He stared and stared, and stared until he finally caught a glimpse of it. From within the fog, he saw a set of glowing amber eyes peering back at him, staring at him, watching him. Chief Nakagumo felt his blood run cold and his hands started shaking. Whatever was watching him was most certainly not human, and its eyes told him it viewed him as prey. He took a moment to calm himself before reaching for his holster. A few seconds later he drew his pistol while stepping out of the car, yelling, "Who goes there?" He yelled, pointed his pistol at the eyes. "This is police property, no one may enter without permission. I do not know who you are or why you are here, but if you leave now I will overlook this trespass." Chief Nakagumo's heart was racing as he looked into these amber eyes in the fog. In all his years on the force, not once had something made him feel this afraid. A few moments later, he repeated his declaration once more, but the eyes did not disappear. Instead, they proceeded to get closer and closer until Chief Nakagumo heard a familiar sound.
Click-clock. 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 Click-clock.
I recognize that sound. That's the sound of Geta sandals. Who on earth is wearing something like the dash? Suddenly, it clicked, and Chief Nakagumo understood what, or rather who was approaching him. This terrifying aura, this feeling of dread, those eyes and that sound. If I put together all the information I have, it can only mean one thing, but that's Dash. That's impossible. He screamed his thoughts aloud. You can't be here, you're supposed to be near Enryakuji. We saw you there less than 2 hours ago, if you had made any moves we would have known. He screamed in panic. The clicking came closer until, from the fog, she appeared. In front of Chief Nakagumo was the one person he never wanted to meet, the one person he shouldn't be meeting, someone he was told couldn't be in Kyoto. But yet, here she was, standing before him in the garage of his own building with a smile that sent chills down his spine. "Good afternoon, Chief Nakagumo. I believe you, and I need to have a little chat," Akaji said playfully.
Spoiler.
Akaji emerged from the dark fog, stepping into a ray of light that managed to pierce into the garage. She gave off an air of elegance and maturity that seemed uncanny for someone her age. Her very form appeared cold and sinister, much like the darkness she emerged from. It was as if she were part of the shadows themselves. Many would use words like beautiful or comely to describe the woman in front of him. But to Chief Nakagumo, the only word he could use to describe her was terrifying. No other words were appropriate, not because they were untrue, but because what was standing before him was not a woman, but a monster in the guise of one. A moment passed, one that felt like an eternity to Chief Nakagumo, before Akaji said, "I haven't seen that look in oh so long."
She flicked her hair.
"It's quite interesting that you can see through the illusion," she said with a light chuckle. "Your face reminds me of when I met Hisha at Hassan the night before the battle. That girl was truly terrified, though she would never admit it." Her voice was warm, almost cheerful as she recalled that night. "I guess it's true, you've got to enjoy the little things in life," she continued. "I'm glad to see you understand your situation, Chief Nakagumo. Perhaps that means you would be more open to answering my questions?" she asked with an innocent smile. Chief Nakagumo found it difficult to speak. "I am a man of the law. I do not deal with sea criminals," he said while stuttering. "I have nothing to say to you." His difficulty speaking surprised him. He'd stared down hardened criminals before, but Akaji truly made him afraid. What kind of a monster was unleashed upon our world? Is this some kind of sick joke played by the gods? The shadows she emerged from seemed to stare into his very soul, ready to consume him at a moment's notice. Nothing to say.
"I see."
Akaji began to slowly circle around him. "I just wanted to confirm some of my information, is all. You see, I know you've taken Kana and the girls, and I know where they are at this very moment," she continued. "I know you want to use them as hostages against me, to provoke me into attacking. Also your politician friends can score points with the public." She stopped, and turned to look at him. "I bet they're real proud of themselves right now." Akaji took a few steps closer.
"They think they've won, don't they?"
"Right now, I bet they're giddy imagining just how high those poll numbers are going to go and what they can do with the power of their returnees." Akaji. Chief Nakagumo remained silent and kept his pistol trained on Akaji as she spoke.
"But you see, Chief. They made 2 mistakes.
2 mistakes that mean their entire plan was all for nothing."
Akaji frowned.
"Your first mistake, Chief, was assuming that your forces and the returnees you've roped into helping you would be enough to beat me." she said as her eyes began to glow. A common mistake really, the Empire for all its wisdom and power made the same one, and they paid the price. Even after the death of the Crown Prince, they didn't understand the difference between us. Truly a tragedy, wouldn't you agree? She asked while getting closer. As she approached, Chief Nakagumo felt a weight crash down upon him as the garage filled with pure darkness. He found it difficult to stand while the very air itself felt toxic to breath. Your second mistake, Akaji continued with an icy cold voice, was involving people I care about in our little game. I don't really care if you come after me, after all, it's what I signed up for when I became an assassin.
She stopped moving.
But when you involve others in an attempt to harm me. She gave a chilling laugh that seemed to echo throughout the darkness. That is when I get just a little bit angry. Akaji's form became surrounded by darkness, almost melding with her, while her still glowing eyes locked themselves on Chief Nakagumo. Her calm voice belied her anger. So Chief, what will it be? Will you answer my questions, or will I have to take something from you? She asked with an evil grin on her face. And I think I know exactly what to take. Chief Nakagumo couldn't answer. Not only was he too terrified, but he had his honor. No matter how dire the circumstances, he would never sell out his fellow officers or members of the government. Doing so would go against everything he ever stood for as a man of the law. He wouldn't cross that line. If she was going to kill him, then so be it. I'm sorry, Sayori, it looks like this is the end. Please forgive me for being such a worthless husband.
Chief Nakagumo.
Seeing this, his reluctance to speak even in the face of mortal danger, Akaji relaxed the pressure on him. Chief Nakagumo felt the massive weight of Akaji's energy lift from his body, and he found himself able to breathe once again. A moment later, Akaji commented,
A man of honor, huh?
Even if your life is in jeopardy, you still won't abandon your principles. From what I've heard about you, that's not surprising, and I must admit it's quite refreshing to see someone like you around in today's day and age. Akaji gave a wicked smile. However, can you still stay that way if someone you care about is put at risk? Just how far are you willing to go to hold on to it? Will you hold fast to that honor if, say, your granddaughter was here right now? Akaji asked with an evil grin. Akaji snapped her fingers, causing the darkness behind her to swirl in a vortex. A moment later, a young girl with long black hair and wearing a raincoat appeared. She was around Kana's age, her glasses were wet with rainwater and her hair was slightly damp. The girl staggered on her feet for a few moments before looking around.
What?
Where am I? I was just in front of my house, wasn't I?
Mom, Dad?
Where did you go? The girl looked around, startled at being pulled from her home.
Kimiko.
Chief Nakagumo screamed. Grandpa! The girl looked straight at him.
What's going on?
Where am I and why are you here? She was completely confused. Who is this girl? She said while looking at Akaji. No. This can't be real. Kimiko is in Osaka with her parents. She can't be here, there's no way. Chief Nakagumo attempted to rationalize the situation in his head. Akaji could tell what he was thinking and smiled. If you're not sure whether she's real or not, allow me to prove it. Akaji walked towards the girl while drawing her katana. Chief Nakagumo watched Akaji get closer and closer to his granddaughter. There's just no way that's really Kimiko. Akaji can't have gone to Osaka and returned so quickly. He still couldn't believe that he was seeing anything but an illusion. Hey, Grandpa W, what's going on? Kimiko said while looking at Akaji. Don't come near me, stay away. She said, backing away. Now my dear, there's no need to be afraid, Akaji said while looking at the shaking girl. I just need to show your grandpa that you're real, and for that, well, I'm sorry, but I think I'll need to do a little damage to you. Maybe just one arm will be enough to show you're here in the flesh. She looked back to Chief Nakagumo. Will that be enough to prove to you that this is the real Kimiko? Or should I chop off more? Akaji said with a twisted smile. If she managed to get from Enryakuji to here in such a short time, then is it really impossible she went to Osaka? How is such a thing even? Chief Nakagumo's thoughts were interrupted by Kimiko's scream. Grandpa, help please. She looked him straight in the eye, falling backward as she attempted to get away from Akaji. She began to cry in sheer terror. If that is the real Kimiko and I refuse, then I can't take that chance. He thought, making up his mind. Well, kid, it seems Grandpa doesn't believe that you're really here. Now tell me, do you write with the right or the left hand, because I'll be nice and take the opposite. Akaji lifted her sword above her head, ready to strike when suddenly. Wait! Chief Nakagumo screamed at the top of his lungs. Please don't hurt her, I believe you, so please. He practically begged. Akaji held her hands in place and looked over her shoulder at him. If you tell me what I want to know, then I might be convinced to let you both walk away from this.
What do you want?
I'll tell you anything, just please don't hurt Kimiko. Chief Nakagumo said with a defeated voice. Lines like that make me seem like the villain, but I guess that's fine. She turned to look at him. I want to know everything. Who planned this whole operation, how high up it went, and just what the Japanese government is up to. If you tell me that, you just might get to enjoy your retirement, Chief. She turned around and sheathed her sword. Just FYI, I know some of these answers already, so if you lie to me. She looked back at the terrified girl. Need I say more? Chief Nakagumo proceeded to explain everything. He explained that the Prime Minister demanded that she be put down to quell public discontent. The government's plan was to provoke Akaji into action and then defeat her using military force. They were expecting the public to approve of such action, especially in light of who Akaji is, to calm public outcry and boost polling numbers. He told Akaji the names of all the key players involved and shared every last classified piece of information he knew, including the names of the returnees they had acquired. Akaji already knew some of this information, due to her intel network, but having it confirmed like this was helpful. Some of it, especially regarding the returnees, was new information. Apparently, they were even experimenting on some of those who had refused their invitation in an attempt to reverse engineering their abilities. That 2 members of the Mitsahide family were involved was merely an amusing footnote. What surprised her the most was that this entire operation was effectively off the books. Most of the Diet wasn't being consulted, and this operation was being conducted without proper authorization. In fact, it seemed that the military was effectively running the show. This meant that the Prime Minister knew just how bad something like this would look, and it showed how desperate he was. Chief Nakagumo even went so far as to give her the entire layout of Camp Katsura and explained exactly what the government was planning for the girls. Of course, hearing that they were likely to be killed after the government was done with them boiled Akaji's blood, but that would soon be a non-issue. Hearing that Chief Nakagumo stayed in the operation to attempt to help the girls did improve her opinion of him somewhat, but Akaji was still disgusted. I knew they were idiots, but to go this far just to save their jobs, either they're stupid or naive. I suppose they just hoped to sweep the shady part under the rug in the aftermath. Akaji. That's it, that's everything I know. Please let Kimiko go.
He pleaded.
She has nothing to do with this. Akaji thought about it for a moment before shrugging her shoulders. I've got everything I need, so why not? Mindless killing isn't exactly my thing anyway. She looked back at Kimiko. Your grandfather cared enough about you to go against his principles as a member of law enforcement. Never forget that you were more important to him than his job. She started to walk away. Wait, you're not going to Camp Katsura, are you? You understand they are waiting for you, right? If you go there, your sister and her friends will be in danger. He said, walking over to Kimiko.
Danger?
Those girls have never been in danger. Akaji said, shaking her head. You couldn't harm those girls if you tried. Did you really think that I just let them wander around without any protection?
She laughed.
I knew something like this could happen, so I prepared accordingly. You knew this was going to happen? Then, that means we were just dancing in the palm of your hand, doesn't it? He gave an exasperated look before a sudden realization hit him. Then, that means he stopped before finishing his sentence. Rather than answer, Akaji simply laughed as she disappeared into the fog. A few moments later, the fog disappeared and the sun began to shine into the parking garage. Kimiko had calmed down somewhat and asked, Grandpa? Who was that and what's going on? Kimiko asked in a quiet voice. That was a monster, Kimiko. A monster that takes the form of a young woman, a monster that in our ignorance we underestimated, and now we must pay the price. He said while holding her tight. Now let's go, I can imagine your parents are in a panic with your disappearance. He pulled out his phone and dialed his daughter's number as the 2 of them walked towards the elevator.
Mia, it's me. Calm down for a moment.
Kimiko is here in Kyoto with me, and she's safe. The woman on the other end of the phone was hysterical. It's been one hell of a day, and I'll explain everything later. Just for now, stay away from Kyoto, things are about to get messy.
More pictures. Spoiler.
Kana, Naomi, and Mika were sitting in a holding cell within the basement of Camp Katsura's main administrative headquarters. They had met with General Izayama, the man in charge of this entire operation, just before being brought here. He explained that Akaji was far too dangerous to be left alive and that with her powers, she could destabilize the country. He droned on and on about his duty to protect Japan and that those with such dangerous powers need to be brought to heel as a matter of national security. Of course, he never even had the decency to apologize to the girls for dragging them into this fight. Kana couldn't deny that Akaji's powers made her dangerous. She knew of her history in FWO and was fully aware of how much damage she could do if she put her mind to it. Kana understood the government's wariness toward her sister. After all, she could use her abilities to take out its most important members quite easily. But she believed declaring her a threat to national security was, not just absurd, but counterproductive. Akaji had no interest in using her abilities to overthrow the government or cause widespread chaos. All she wanted to do was continue her work from FWO, but if the government insisted on involving those she cared about, Kana knew she wouldn't just sit back and watch. However, no matter how much she tried to explain this, the general had none of it. He told her that these were dangerous times and the government couldn't afford to have such a dagger pointed at its throat. Akaji was a variable, he told her, one so dangerous that they would rather remove her from the equation than wait and see how she would act. When asked if he would eliminate all those who retained their powers, he replied that he would prefer to work with them for the security of Japan. If you were really concerned about security, you wouldn't pull this kind of a stunt. Does he really not understand that by kidnapping us he's made the government One-ichan's enemy?
Kana thought.
The girls were then shown to their cells and told they would be released as soon as Akaji was dealt with. Kana and Naomi knew better than to believe this. It was more likely they would be disposed of to minimize the risk of the government's actions leaking. The three of them sat in almost complete silence. Mika was on the verge of panicking and Naomi attempted to comfort her. We're going to go home, right? Mika was on the verge of tears. If this is punishment for never studying, I promise I'll take it seriously from now on, she said, wrapped in Naomi's arms. It's okay, Mika, everything will be all right, Naomi said, attempting to calm her. And I doubt you would actually study, even after this. She tried adding a bit of levity to the conversation. Yeah, Naomi's right. One-ichan will come and rescue us, I just know it. So don't worry, Kana said with complete faith in her sister. Mika looked up at her.
But, can she really save us?
The military is after her, and they took us to lure her in, right?
She asked.
I mean, you saw just how many soldiers and tanks are in this base. There's no way she can beat them even with her powers, Mika said with a defeated voice. I wouldn't be so sure of that. You saw her abilities, didn't you? She can probably just sneak in here and get us out,
Kana said. Also,
don't forget, One-ichan isn't alone. She has all her friends with her, so don't count her out just yet, Mika,
Kana reminded her.
I'm still worried about her though, and I hope she'll be all right. Be careful, One-ichan, and please don't go overboard. Kana's thoughts swirled between believing in her sister and being afraid at what she might do. In the back of her mind, she even began to doubt that Akaji and her sister really were the same person. Her attitude and personality were similar, but Kana could see the darkness that lied within and it scared her. The only question was whether this darkness was part of Akaji herself, or something else. Of course, no one had any way of knowing exactly what Akaji planned on doing, or that she intended to do far more than just rescue the Akaji POV. Akaji stood on a rooftop overlooking Camp Katsura. She arrived there not long after departing the police headquarters, and was currently doing some scouting. The base was rather large for being in the middle of a city like Kyoto. It was well manned and completely modern, owing to American training and investment. If anything, this place was more like a fortress than a simple base.
I see.
Well, the layout matches what Nakagumo and Chloe told me,
she hummed.
Definitely much more elaborate than an imperial base, but I suspect much of the same design philosophy applies. Her eyes darted around, taking in as much information as possible. Even at this distance, Akaji could see things clearly. Her eyes were far better than a normal human's. There are easily 500 soldiers currently on base. Much more than usual, though I guess that makes sense since they're expecting me. Akaji had some experience dealing with military from her many fights with the Empire. Standard doctrine has somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 support personnel for each soldier, so there could easily be 1,000 to 2,000 people on base.
Akaji.
A few moments later, Yumi appeared at her side and knelt. My lord, Chloe's squad has taken position. Her team is ready to strike whenever you give the signal. Yumi had been busy assembling the first team led by the catkin Chloe. While her team specialized in intelligence gathering, they could more than hold their own in infiltration and ambush operations. Just under 20 members of Akaji's team would take part in this attack, a small number to be sure, but they were some of her best.
Good.
As for the signal, Akaji thought for a moment. I think Chloe will know it when she sees it.
She gave a cheeky smile.
This wouldn't be the first time they'd attacked a major military installation, and Chloe was no stranger to fighting at Akaji's side. Connect me to her if you wouldn't mind, Akaji asked Yumi.
Of course, one moment. Yumi.
One of Yumi's many powers was the ability to use long-range telepathy with targets she knew. It had proven to be invaluable in the game where such communication was otherwise impossible. In the real world, it was equally as useful since it was a secure connection that no military could crack. Hello Meister, we're in position Naya.
What do you need?
The cat girl said as she connected. Chloe, your first priority should be to get the girls out of the base safely. Once you've done that, I want you to begin systematically eliminating everyone in the base.
Akaji said with a cold voice. Everyone Naya? The cat asked.
Everyone, these idiots wanted a war, and well, who are we to deny them?
She laughed.
Of course, your team's lives are more important. If you run into any danger, feel free to disengage. Roger that Naya.
Chloe.
Akaji didn't expect to actually wipe out the entire population of the base. She estimated that after about a third of its forces were wiped out, they would surrender. Also, I'm pretty sure they have a few former members of the assault team hiding in there. If you run into them, do not engage. I doubt you can beat them, and even if you could.
She smiled.
It's only right that I take them down. Akaji was never one that could say no to a duel. Other than that, feel free to enjoy the slaughter to your heart's content. She knew the cat would enjoy this. However, you may only engage residents of the base itself. She reminded Chloe that she did not want to harm civilians if possible. Akaji remembered something else. Oh yeah, if you happen to run into a certain old man running the place, do me a favor and leave him for me. The cat knew exactly who she was talking about. Happy hunting, Akaji said as she cut the connection. Knowing Chloe, I'm sure she'll be fine, but I must say I am a little bit nervous about this operation, Yumi said to Akaji. I've read up on the history of your world and you have much more impressive ways of killing than we did. FWO was a sword and sorcery fantasy game. After all, its military weapons were anything but modern. Yeah, I don't blame you. Akaji gave a wry smile. But don't forget we already tested a few of these weapons on us and they had no effect. Akaji was referencing an experiment where they shot each other with some guns acquired via Naomi. Your shield didn't even flicker when shot. I think we'll be fine. But don't let your guard down. I didn't lose any of you in FWO, and I'm not about to break that perfect record. Akaji said with a serious expression. All you need to do is stay next to me and cover my back. I'll take care of the rest. Now let's go. The two women descended the building, quickly reaching street level. Their sudden appearance alarmed some of the pedestrians and a few even made some comments about cosplay. A woman wearing Taisho-era clothing, followed by a shrine maiden, wasn't exactly normal in Kyoto. The two women ignored these strange looks. They really didn't care what people thought of them, and focused on the task at hand. They weren't particularly far from Camp Katsura, and it only took a few minutes before they approached its main entrance. The main gate was a massive structure several feet thick and guarded by two soldiers sitting in a booth that overlooked the entryway. It was designed to keep out anyone and was strong enough to take hits from artillery and survive. The massive gate was currently sealed shut and could only be opened via a switch on a console where the two soldiers sat. The women walked straight past the warning sign alongside the road which told civilians to keep out. This prompted one of the soldiers to grab his gun and approach them from the opposite direction.
Halt! He yelled.
This is a restricted area. Civilians aren't allowed turn around. We're authorized to use lethal force if you refuse, he said, taking the safety off his weapon. Who the hell are these two women? And what's with those get-ups? A shrine maiden and a kimono, are they some kind of cosplay outfits? It was quite abnormal for civilians to approach the front of the base. Even the most curious onlookers wouldn't get this close.
Oh? An ultimatum? I love ultimatums.
Akaji said with a laugh.
Here's mine.
Get the hell out of my way or die, your choice. She gave an unsettling smile. Since he didn't fire on sight, I guess that means they didn't fill all the soldiers in on their plan. Oh well, too bad for them. Akaji. The soldier rose his weapon hearing Akaji's words. Last warning, leave now or I will shoot. The soldier said, steeling himself. However, his preparation and resolve was all for naught. The moment he finished his sentence, he felt weightless, as if he was flying through the air. It was a strange sensation, one that he couldn't understand. Then just as quickly as it arrived, it stopped and he found himself staring at his own feet. What just? He didn't even have time to process the fact that his head was separated from his body before he died. The second soldier watched in horror at what happened. I didn't even see her move, what the fuck just happened? He thought as he stared at these two women. I have to alert the base. He reached for the console and pressed a button. We're under Ata - his words stopped as a black blade sliced his throat. Akaji reached his position in a flash, giving the man no time to react. The soldier stared at her while choking on his blood. He tried to reach for his weapon, but Akaji drove her blade into his heart, killing him instantly. As she swung her blade to clean the blood off it, a voice could be heard from the console.
Gate respond. What's going on?
Are we under attack? Answer immediately. A woman's voice could be heard from the speaker.
Akaji chuckled. She had an idea.
She walked over to the console, pushed the man's body aside, and pushed the comms button.
This is Gate. She said to the woman.
I'm afraid your two soldiers are a little indisposed and won't be getting back to you anytime soon.
She laughed. Who the hell is this? What's going on?
Where are UCI and Inigawa? The woman asked in a panic. Oh, don't worry honey, you'll be seeing them soon enough. Akaji gave a sinister laugh as she slashed the console, ending the conversation. A moment later alarms could be heard inside the base. Well, I guess they know we're here now, Yumi said while walking up to Akaji. What about that gate? Can you open it with whatever mechanism these soldiers had? Yumi asked, unfamiliar with electronics. Akaji gestured to the massive gash in the terminal. I'm going to take that as a no.
Yumi sighed.
Did you really have to break it?
Akaji laughed.
No, but I think this will be more fun. Akaji walked outside and stood in front of the massive steel gate. She placed her katana inside its sheath, took a crouching stance, closed her eyes tightly, and took a deep breath. A few seconds later, her eyes opened and her arm was extended with the katana pointing off to her right side. Her slash was too fast for the human eye to see, but its results were devastating. At first, it seemed as if nothing happened, but a moment later, a seam appeared on the door. The door began to groan as it fell backward into the base. Her sword had split it in two, carving through the reinforced gate like a hot knife through butter. Inside, soldiers could be seen running in all directions, but those close enough to witness the massive door collapsing were momentarily stunned. Most had looks of disbelief on their faces, while others looked terrified. A few seconds after the nurse's urgent call, a voice echoed from the hallway. I'm coming, I'm coming. I'm aware the patient is awake, but shouting hardly seems necessary, Kirika. A moment later, the owner of the voice entered, a man in a white coat, clearly a doctor. He strode into the room briskly, only to halt mid-step as his eyes fell on Akaji. He blinked, visibly startled. It took him a moment to recover his professional demeanor.
Well,
he said carefully, I suppose Ms. Rishia having completely different hair and eye color is grounds for some concern.
He turned to the nurse.
Bring me her chart, it should be on my desk.
Amherst.
Akaji studied the man. He wasn't Japanese. Brown hair, graying at the temples, and sharp gray eyes. He looked American, maybe in his mid-40s.
An American doctor? No, that doesn't add up.
That nurse was clearly Japanese. And flying me across the Pacific while trapped in the headset would have been suicide.
Akaji.
At least he spoke fluent Japanese. The man offered a gentle smile. My name is David Amherst. You're at Kyoto Central Hospital. You were moved here with your parents' consent after it became clear that Free World Online's alpha testers were trapped.
His expression darkened.
The UN assembled a task force, doctors specializing in VR treatment and coma care.
Like myself.
He sighed heavily. Not that it helped much, he added bitterly. We could keep your bodies alive, but we couldn't do anything to wake you. We tried to remove the headgear early on, but... Akaji didn't need him to finish.
Yeah. People died.
We figured messing with the gear could kill us, but hearing it confirmed still sucks.
Akaji. Amherst stepped closer.
Are you able to speak? He asked gently. It's normal to struggle after such extreme muscle atrophy. Akaji inhaled slowly. Why yeah, a little difficult, but I can talk.
Akaji.
Relief flickered across his face.
Good.
That makes things easier. Tell me, were you the only one to log out?
Amherst.
In a weak but steady voice, Akaji explained that the assault team had defeated the final world boss and that the system had promised everyone a logout. At first, Amherst smiled, but his smile soon crumbled into a look of deep sadness.
It's good.
It's good that it's over.
He said, voice trembling.
But almost 2,000 dead, and we couldn't save a single one. All our technology, all our breakthroughs, useless. His hands shook slightly. Every day we watched and waited, wondering who would die next. Wondering if there'd be anyone left to save. Tears welled in his eyes. My apologies, he said, wiping them away quickly. You deserve better than to see this mess.
Amherst.
Not long after, Nurse Karika returned carrying a file folder.
Here you are, doctor, she said. Thank you.
Also, contact her family, and reach out to Chief Nakagumo and Dr. Ishihara. Set up a meeting ASAP.
Amherst.
Turning back to Akaji, he softened his voice. Your family will be here soon.
Your sister, Kana, right? Visited you constantly.
She told everyone you were a genius. Said no game could beat you.
He chuckled quietly. Seems she was right. Amherst.
For now, he continued, I need to run some basic checks. Nothing invasive, just vitals.
Akaji agreed.
After all, she was just as curious about her condition. The checkup was quick, and Amherst eventually set the equipment aside. Overall, you're stable. Weak, yes, but that's expected. What concerns me most, though.
He paused, hesitating. Your appearance. Your eyes, amber.
Your hair, green mixed with black. Your skin, paler than before. This is, well, different. According to your records, you had black hair and brown eyes.
Amherst.
He gave her a sympathetic look, though confusion lingered in his gaze. Any idea how this could have happened? I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like it. Akaji frowned, thinking. Could I see a mirror? Akaji. Amherst nodded and fetched a small portable mirror from across the room. He held it up so she could see herself. Staring back at her was the face she knew intimately. Her FWO avatar. Her real face, as far as she was concerned. She laughed, a full, genuine laugh that startled the doctor. Seeing his alarm, she quickly waved a hand. I'm fine, she assured him, still grinning. In fact, I'm better than fine. This face, she said reverently, is mine. It's the face I saw every day in Free World Online.
It's me.
Maybe, this is the system's reward. If so, I'm definitely not complaining. Akaji. Amherst watched her, struggling between scientific concern and human sympathy. I see, he said carefully. If that's your avatar, I understand why you'd be happy. But, I truly don't understand how such a change could happen. It defies everything we know about VR tech. No physical interaction. No biological link, and yet here she is, changed at the genetic level? This is madness. Ishihara's going to lose it.
Amherst.
Akaji said nothing about Mizumi or the promised reward. She wasn't ready to open that door yet. Once you're stronger, we'll need to run some extensive tests, Amherst said gently. Just to be safe. There could be side effects we don't understand yet. She nodded in agreement. For the next 45 minutes, they went through cognitive tests and memory checks. Finally, Amherst sat back, looking thoughtful. Your memory seems intact, except your original name, he said. Based on everything you've told me, I'd say it wasn't brain damage.
It was disassociation.
You embraced your identity as Akaji so fully that your old name, Rishia Tamagawa, faded away.
Amherst. Rishia Tamagawa, Akaji.
Hearing it aloud stirred no emotion.
No sense of connection.
It felt wrong, a name for a person who no longer existed. Akaji fits me far better.
Always has.
Always will. Akaji. She smiled faintly.
Strange.
Why do I sense someone approaching?
No, 3 people.
It's the same feeling I had when using Detect Presence in FWO, but that's impossible. Right? She pushed the thought aside for now.
Amherst rose.
Your family should be here any minute. I'll leave you to rest. No restrictions on visiting hours for you, you've earned that much. He smiled kindly. Don't overexert yourself. Healing will take time, but you'll get there.
Amherst. Bang. The door flew open.
A girl in a school uniform with a black ponytail burst into the room, tears already welling in her eyes.
One-chan. Kana.
Akaji's heart squeezed painfully at the familiar beloved voice. The 3 girls heeded her warning and moved to the back of the cell before the cat girl swung her blade and cut the bars into pieces. The girls were shocked at how easily this girl, who was as built identically to them, cut those thick steel bars. Just, how strong is this girl? She cut those bars like they were nothing.
Naomi. All done.
Now let's use somewhere safe, so that Master and I can go all out Naya. She said, motioning them to follow. The three girls looked at each other, comforted by the fact that they were all very confused. As the girls left the holding cell and ventured into the adjacent room, they were assaulted by the smell of blood that permeated the air, and the room was filled with the corpses of the soldiers that once defended this building. Kana and Naomi became nauseous but managed to hold it together. However, Mika, who had a very weak stomach, vomited on the floor and turned stark white. She had never been very good with gore in movies, and this was on a whole nother level.
Oh, I forgot.
Kids like you aren't usually good with this sort of stuff.
She walked over to Mika.
I can't make the mental part any better, but I can at least calm your stomach, Naya. Her hand began glowing bright white and she rubbed Mika on her back. Does that feel better, Naya? I cast a light heal on you. She asked, concerned for the girl. Mika took a moment to steady herself and calm her breathing. Yeah, I feel better. My stomach calmed down. I guess it's good that we didn't eat before we went to Kana's house. She's still pale and looked quite ill.
Good.
Kids like you shouldn't have to see this kind of thing, Naya. Forgive me for showing you something like this. I didn't even think of removing the bodies before I came for you. Her ears drooped slightly. Okay, that's kinda cute.
Kana, Naomi and Mika.
Wait, hold on. Something the cat had said caught Naomi's attention. You call us kids, but aren't you the same age as us? You can't be much older. Looking at Chloe, you might think she was 18 or 19 at best. She was the same height as the girls, but her personality made her seem childish.
Naya?
The same age as you? I'm 23 if I'm not mistaken, so I'm a little older than you three. She answered with a cheeky smile.
Eh? The three girls were shocked. Wait, what?
You're even older than One-Ichan. But you look so. Kana couldn't believe that this innocent little girl was actually much older than they were. Well, excuse me for being short,
she said in a huff.
Beastkin don't tend to be that tall, and I'll have you know I was considered quite big for my village.
She looked at Kana.
And besides, I'm as tall as you, Naya. Kana's comments had touched a nerve. Well, I mean, she is the same height as us, maybe even slightly taller than Mika? Not that she's that tall to begin with.
Kana.
Sorry, please don't be mad. I was just surprised. She pleaded for forgiveness.
Naya, haha. The cat laughed. I'm not mad.
I don't really care about my height. After all, Maester said I'm perfect just the way I am, Naya. She gave a big smile. One-Ichan, you better not be just stringing this girl along. Kana's thoughts got scary. As she finished speaking, two more animal-eared ninjas appeared in the room and began to give a report to Chloe. Leader, we have finished eliminating the enemy soldiers nearby. We can begin exfiltration as soon as you are ready. Dog-eared ninja male. Kira is currently holding down the wall breach and is on standby as requested. Fox-eared ninja female. Chloe gave a nod as her subordinates updated her on the situation. Good work, you two. I want you with me while we escort these three to Kira Naya. Once she takes them to safety, we'll commence part 2 of our mission. The cat girl said with a scary grin.
Yes, Fox. Of course, dog.
Wow, what a 180 from her playful airhead self just a second ago. Just who exactly is this girl? Naomi thought to herself, confused about the cat they had just met. She seemed to flip back and forth between being aloof and serious. Naomi couldn't tell which was the real her. Chloe looked back at the girls. All right, let's get you somewhere safe. We're going to escort you to Kira, and then she'll be in charge of keeping you safe, Naya.
She said.
She's a little bit of a stick in the mud, but I think you'll like her. And like that, she was back to being mischievous again, as she stuck out her tongue when referring to Kira. Just how many people does Akaji have working for her?
Naomi.
The three girls nodded and followed the three animal-earned ninjas out of the building and towards the massive hole in the eastern wall. As they walked, they could hear the sounds of battle throughout the base. Explosions and gunfire could be heard all around them, with screams sprinkled in once in a while. It was clear that Akaji had initiated a full-scale assault to save them and that she wasn't pulling any punches. One-Ichan, I'm happy you saved us, but was all this really necessary? Kana's previous doubt had begun to resurface upon seeing all the death and destruction that Akaji caused. Would One-Ichan really go this far, even for me? Seeing the three ninjas walking quite casually down the road, Kana decided to ask a question. Are you guys used to this kind of stuff? It seems like you're quite relaxed for being in the middle of a battlefield. Isn't this kind of thing dangerous? Kana thought it strange how calm they were.
Chloe looked back. Of course it's dangerous, Naya.
But it's our job. Normally my team doesn't do such flashy maneuvers, but we know how to fight and we do our best work when we're relaxed.
She gave a smile. And my sister? Is she okay?
Can she really fight so many people herself? Kana asked pensively.
My sister?
I wouldn't worry about her, Naya. I don't think anything could stop her when she puts her mind to it.
She chuckled.
I have a feeling that the general might be regretting his decision right about now. A few minutes later, they arrived at the wall breach. Waiting for them was a tall woman with long green hair. She was wearing what looked like a military uniform and had two horns protruding from her head, as well as a thick lizard-like tail.
Ah, there you are.
I was starting to think I would have to go looking for you,
she said in a sarcastic voice. The cat stuck out her tongue at this comment. Here they are.
Please take care of these three back at base and have Mimi take a look at them just to be safe,
Chloe said.
I will, and be careful in there. Some of our teams have been hitting heavy resistance, Kira warned. Any casualties? The cat asked with concern. A few have been wounded, but nothing life-threatening. Chloe sighed in relief.
Good.
She looked back at the girls. Kira will take you from here. She can be a little scary, but she's a nice lady, she said with a mischievous grin.
Oi.
The dragon lady took exception to this comment. My team and I are gonna join in the fun. If all goes well, I'll see you all at base in a little bit, Naya, she said as she and her team jumped onto the roof of one of the nearby barracks and ran towards the sound of gunfire. Now then, stupid comments by that cat aside. Kira sighed and looked at the girls. Let's get you out of here, this is no place for the likes of you. She walked up to the girls. Stand close to me, I can only teleport those within a small radius. The girls gathered up close to her as a small magic circle formed around them. A moment later, the four of them disappeared in a flash of light.
Spoiler.
A few seconds after the nurse's urgent call, a voice echoed from the hallway. I'm coming, I'm coming. I'm aware the patient is awake, but shouting hardly seems necessary, Karika. A moment later, the owner of the voice entered, a man in a white coat, clearly a doctor. He strode into the room briskly, only to halt mid-step as his eyes fell on Akaji. He blinked, visibly startled. It took him a moment to recover his professional demeanor.
Well,
he said carefully, I suppose Ms. Rishia having completely different hair and eye color is grounds for some concern.
He turned to the nurse.
Bring me her chart, it should be on my desk.
Amherst.
Akaji studied the man. He wasn't Japanese. Brown hair, graying at the temples, and sharp gray eyes. He looked American, maybe in his mid-40s.
An American doctor? No, that doesn't add up.
That nurse was clearly Japanese. And flying me across the Pacific while trapped in the headset would have been suicide. Akaji. At least he spoke fluent Japanese. The man offered a gentle smile. My name is David Amherst. You're at Kyoto Central Hospital. You were moved here with your parents' consent after it became clear that Free World Online's alpha testers were trapped.
His expression darkened.
The UN assembled a task force, doctors specializing in VR treatment and coma care.
Like myself.
He sighed heavily. Not that it helped much, he added bitterly. We could keep your bodies alive, but we couldn't do anything to wake you. We tried to remove the headgear early on, but Akaji didn't need him to finish.
Yeah. People died.
We figured messing with the gear could kill us, but hearing it confirmed still sucks.
Akaji. Amherst stepped closer.
Are you able to speak? He asked gently. It's normal to struggle after such extreme muscle atrophy. Akaji inhaled slowly. Why yeah, a little difficult, but I can talk. Akaji. Relief flickered across his face.
Good.
That makes things easier. Tell me, were you the only one to log out?
Amherst.
In a weak but steady voice, Akaji explained that the assault team had defeated the final world boss and that the system had promised everyone a logout. At first, Amherst smiled, but his smile soon crumbled into a look of deep sadness.
It's good.
It's good that it's over,
he said, voice trembling.
But almost 2,000 dead, and we couldn't save a single one. All our technology, all our breakthroughs, useless. His hands shook slightly. Every day we watched and waited, wondering who would die next. Wondering if there'd be anyone left to save. Tears welled in his eyes. My apologies, he said, wiping them away quickly. You deserve better than to see this mess.
Amherst.
Not long after, Nurse Karika returned carrying a file folder. Here you are, doctor, she said.
Thank you.
Also, contact her family. And reach out to Chief Nakagumo and Dr. Ishihara. Set up a meeting ASAP.
Amherst.
Turning back to Akaji, he softened his voice. Your family will be here soon.
Your sister, Kana, right?
Visited you constantly. She told everyone you were a genius. Said no game could beat you.
He chuckled quietly. Seems she was right. Amherst.
For now, he continued, I need to run some basic checks. Nothing invasive, just vitals.
Akaji agreed.
After all, she was just as curious about her condition. The checkup was quick, and Amherst eventually set the equipment aside. Overall, you're stable. Weak, yes, but that's expected. What concerns me most, though.
He paused, hesitating. Your appearance. Your eyes, amber.
Your hair, green mixed with black. Your skin, paler than before. This is, well, different. According to your records, you had black hair and brown eyes.
Amherst.
He gave her a sympathetic look, though confusion lingered in his gaze. Any idea how this could have happened? I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like it. Akaji frowned, thinking. Could I see a mirror?
Akaji.
Amherst nodded and fetched a small portable mirror from across the room. He held it up so she could see herself. Staring back at her was the face she knew intimately. Her FWO avatar. Her real face, as far as she was concerned. She laughed, a full, genuine laugh that startled the doctor. Seeing his alarm, she quickly waved a hand. I'm fine, she assured him, still grinning. In fact, I'm better than fine. This face, she said reverently, is mine. It's the face I saw every day in Free World Online.
It's me.
Maybe, this is the system's reward. If so, I'm definitely not complaining.
Akaji.
Amherst watched her, struggling between scientific concern and human sympathy. I see, he said carefully. If that's your avatar, I understand why you'd be happy. But, I truly don't understand how such a change could happen. It defies everything we know about VR tech. No physical interaction. No biological link, and yet here she is, changed at the genetic level? This is madness. Ishihara's going to lose it.
Amherst.
Akaji said nothing about Mizumi or the promised reward. She wasn't ready to open that door yet. Once you're stronger, we'll need to run some extensive tests, Amherst said gently. Just to be safe. There could be side effects we don't understand yet. She nodded in agreement. For the next 45 minutes, they went through cognitive tests and memory checks. Finally, Amherst sat back, looking thoughtful. Your memory seems intact, except your original name, he said. Based on everything you've told me, I'd say it wasn't brain damage.
It was disassociation.
You embraced your identity as Akaji so fully that your old name, Rishia Tamagawa, faded away.
Amherst. Rishia Tamagawa, Akaji.
Hearing it aloud stirred no emotion.
No sense of connection.
It felt wrong, a name for a person who no longer existed. Akaji fits me far better.
Always has.
Always will.
Akaji.
She smiled faintly.
Strange.
Why do I sense someone approaching?
No, 3 people.
It's the same feeling I had when using Detect Presence in FWO, but that's impossible. Right? She pushed the thought aside for now.
Amherst rose.
Your family should be here any minute. I'll leave you to rest. No restrictions on visiting hours for you, you've earned that much. He smiled kindly. Don't overexert yourself. Healing will take time, but you'll get there.
Amherst. Bang. The door flew open.
A girl in a school uniform with a black ponytail burst into the room, tears already welling in her eyes.
Oni-chan. Kana.
Akaji's heart squeezed painfully at the familiar beloved voice. With her departure, Akaji and Ishigami stood alone together in the center of the main courtyard. There were no soldiers and Akaji's subordinates were busy on the opposite side of the base. If she was going to fight Ishigami, it would be alone. Feeling scared yet, Akaji?
He laughed.
Without that healer of yours, do you think you can win against me? He lifted his sword in one hand and pointed it at her. Akaji just sighed. What makes you think I need Yumi to beat you, Ishigami? If anyone should be concerned, it's you. Akaji couldn't understand where this confidence was coming from. What the hell are you talking about? Are you saying I can't beat you? Ishigami was flabbergasted by Akaji's claim.
Of course you can't.
Akaji's looked at him like he was an idiot. Do you think you can beat me in a one-on-one duel when even Hisha was hesitant to do so? Hisha was the best player in the game, besides Akaji, and was incredibly adept at single combat. Her build was almost unbeatable when it came to monsters, and it was even competent against other players. Despite this, she only ever fought Akaji alone once, and she was unwilling to do so ever again. You think by separating me from Yumi you've somehow weakened me, right? Akaji could only shake her head.
Well, you're wrong.
In fact, you actually gave up your greatest advantage by splitting from Minazawa. If the two of you had come at me together, things may have been at least a little difficult. Those two had worked together for years and are a shining example of teamwork. Fighting them together would be tough for even the most seasoned players. Not to say that they were unbeatable, but they were definitely stronger together than apart. Could they beat Akaji? Maybe, maybe not. At the very least the chances of success were much higher together.
Ha! He scoffed at her statement.
You say that, but I'm going to prove you wrong. The only reason I never killed you is because Hisha always got in my way. He said as he dove towards Akaji. I don't need Minazawa to beat you. What an absolute idiot. How did someone like this become one of the top members of the assault team? Akaji asked herself. He was fast, but Akaji was faster. He swung his sword wildly as he attempted to hit her, but found himself always just off his mark. Akaji was likely the fastest player in FWO, and it showed. Each time he swung, it seemed as if he moved in slow motion. She sidestepped many of his attacks or contorted her body just out of his intended path. But Ishigami was undeterred by his inability to hit her, saying,
Ha ha ha.
All you can do is dodge, can't you, bitch? I wonder how long until that speed fails you. All it's gonna take is one mistake. He slammed his blade down into the asphalt, missing Akaji by a wide margin. I think my stamina is going to last much longer than yours at the very least. Akaji could only laugh at his attempts. And maybe actually aim when swinging that big stick around. You were miles off. He really doesn't understand anything about PvP, does he? All that heavy armor makes him slow and cumbersome, and big damage doesn't mean a damn thing if it means he can't hit his opponent. Akaji. In FWO, most monsters simply charged at the player and fought them head-on, and since beating the game was more important than fighting other players, members of the assault team kit themselves out to fight monsters, not players. This meant that they prioritized survivability and slow high-damage attacks, as most monsters weren't intelligent enough to avoid them or they could rely on teammates to cover them. Couple this with his lack of PvP experience, and you had a textbook example of what happens when you take a PvE build into PvP. Sure, in theory, if he hit Akaji she would be in some serious trouble, but the chances of that were slim. This farce continued for several minutes as Akaji danced around his blade. Each time Akaji would allow him to get just close enough with his blade to make him think he had a chance, but she would never allow him to hit. After a while, Akaji decided to strike back. She swung her blade and put a deep gash on Ishigami's face. He tried to dodge, but his heavy armor and weapon meant he had limited maneuverability. You bitch! He screamed as they broke apart. I hope such a weak attack isn't all you've got. It's going to take much more than that to beat me. Is he really that dense? Does he not understand that I intentionally limited my strike? That I can do far worse if he doesn't stop? Akaji was shocked by just how stupid he was. And you were a top member of the assault team? It's a miracle they actually won if idiots like this were the best they had. Ishigami let out a roar.
Alright, I'm all warmed up.
Let's finish this. He jumped forward, his blade coating itself in fire.
Really?
That ability will make your hits more dangerous, but you're still just as slow. Do you really have nothing to boost your speed? Akaji. The two maneuvered back and forth across the main yard of the base. Their forms blurred as they moved at blistering speeds. Even with all that heavy armor and equipment, Ishigami's speed was far above what a normal person could achieve. However, it still wasn't enough as Akaji continued to dodge his strikes, which only served to grow Ishigami's frustration.
Why?
Why can't I hit her? I've never had this much trouble before. Is this some kind of assassin trick? It must be, there's no other explanation. Akaji, I'll just have to figure out your trick and blow right through it. Ishigami came to the wrong conclusion about his inability to hit Akaji. Eventually, the fatigue began to take hold, and Ishigami's movement slowed even further. His plan to take down Akaji quickly with his overwhelming strength had failed. Looks like that's it. All that talk and he ran out of steam, just as predicted. Hisha, I thought you trained these idiots? Did you not warn them about taking a PvE mentality into PvP? At this point, Akaji was thoroughly disappointed with Ishigami. No, I bet you did, and I bet they promptly discarded that advice, believing themselves to be strong enough without it. Players who were a part of the assault team focused on taking down monsters. Thus, their builds revolved around group combat, survivability, and methods of damage that would only work where enemies didn't effectively dodge. This was a pattern that most players in general followed. Even solo players or other pikers dumped points into skills to help them fight monsters out of necessity. However, Akaji was different. While her arsenal could be used on monsters, it was wholly inefficient at doing so. Instead, Akaji focused on skills to help her kill other players. Her build was entirely focused on PvP, while the other players were either a mix of the two or completely PvE. It might not seem like it, but this difference was massive. As the only fully PvP player in FWO, it would be difficult, nigh on impossible, to take her down 1v1 as her skills invalidated most PvE builds. This was the reason that Hisha never challenged her alone a second time. No matter how good Hisha was at the game, she couldn't use skill to overcome fundamental game design. Finally, Ishigami stopped. He was completely exhausted and was struggling to breathe.
Are we done here?
Because to be honest, you're wasting my time, Akaji said with irritation in her voice. I've got places to be and things to do, so how about you go home, Ishigami?
Pant wheeze. He could barely breathe.
I will never give up. I will bring you to justice, even if it kills me. He stood straight up, brought his sword into stance and screamed.
Limiter release.
His body glowed in bright white light as a surge of energy washed over him. Then, in an instant, he was gone, like a lightning flash in the night sky. Akaji barely had a moment to think before he was on top of her. Well, I guess he had one trump card to play. Akaji. At terrifying speeds, he brought his blade down onto Akaji's form, making contact. Yes, he cheered in his mind. Even she can't react this fast, it's over, you've got nowhere to run, Akaji. His blade split Akaji down the middle from head to toe, bisecting her in two. Yes, he yelled, didn't see that coming, did
you, bitch.
His words slowed to a crawl as he caught sight of the now split form of Akaji in front of him. Along the path of his blade was a clean cut surrounded by black smoke. Akaji's face was contorted into a smug smile as her image dissolved into black shadow. It was as if he swung at something that wasn't there. There's no way that his words were cut off as a blade dove straight through his heart. Oh, but there is. Akaji was standing directly behind him, completely unharmed.
He coughed up blood.
That's impossible, there's no way you should have been able to react to my limit breaker. Akaji pulled her blade out of his chest. Limit breaker is quite a neat skill. In exchange for being defenseless for the next 30 seconds, you can overcharge your next attack to a disgusting degree, she said, praising the ability. It's great when fighting bosses, or where you have a team to back you up.
She kicked him over.
However, that's not the kind of ability you want to use when fighting another player. She said, walking alongside him. You bitch, if it wasn't for your cheap tricks.
I know I would have beat you,
he yelled weakly. He was losing a lot of blood, it was likely he wouldn't last much longer. Akaji shook her head as she looked him in the eye. Ishigami, you will never beat me, not now, not ever, and do you know why?
She cut off his head.
Because it was never a game to me.
Spoiler.
Ow. Yumi cried in pain. That really hurt. Not exactly a fan of being launched into buildings. Yumi was flung across the base by Minazawa's knockback attack to separate her from Akaji. This wasn't the first time she was separated from her master in such a spectacular fashion. Yumi stood up, shaking off the dirt and rubble that had landed on her, and readied herself for the battle to come. As she did this, Minazawa finished running across the base and stood before her, drawing her sword and raising her shield. Well, you didn't die on impact, so I guess that's something.
She chuckled.
I guess you're pretty durable for a healer.
Heshi laughed.
I had a pretty strict teacher, so excuse me for being a bit hard to kill. Yumi summoned her staff and used magic to swap into her battle clothes. If you want to kill me, you're going to have to try a lot harder than that. That said, I might be able to take a hit here and there, but I doubt I can actually beat her head on. She was a player, someone like me can't compete in terms of power or abilities. If I'm gonna win, it will have to be by outsmarting her. Hey, tell me, Minazawa said, lowering her sword. Why are you still working for that bitch? I mean, in FWO you were just an NPC follower. You really didn't have a choice, so I understand helping her in the game, but you're free now. So why? This was only partially true. The NPCs of the game were very intelligent and autonomous. Listen, I'll cut you a deal, she continued. Surrender and come help us. I'm sure the government would love someone like you on the team. At the very least, You won't have to die along with that master of yours, she said, trying to help. I refuse. Yumi didn't even have to think about her response. That was quick. Minazawa was surprised by the immediate and unflinching answer. I don't get it, your master murders people for a living. She takes the lives of innocent people for what?
Money?
Doesn't that disgust you?
She asked. Yumi didn't respond. Because it disgusts me.
A person, no, a monster like that shouldn't be allowed to exist, and if you want to die with her, then so be it. She lifted her sword, which shone with a purple glow.
A monster?
That's rich coming from someone like you. Yumi took a fighting stance, filled her staff with magical energy, and fired it at Minazawa. What are you talking about? The swordswoman blocked the attack. Your words make it seem like you're upset by my lord's actions, but you're not actually angry that she killed people. No, you're angry that she killed other players. Yumi answered, firing off another blast. What is this girl talking about? Isn't that the same thing? Minazawa thought while dodging her attack. If you're so against the killing of others, where were you when players slaughtered people from my world for fun?
Did you help us?
Did you find the player who killed all my friends and family? Yumi asked with a cold voice. No, you didn't. You and all the others couldn't care less when we died. She began to spin her glowing staff above her head. Well, I mean, you were just NPCs, so. Minazawa was confused. Of course, players wouldn't fight each other over the deaths of NPCs.
Right?
Hearing this, Yumi stopped preparing her attack and shot Minazawa a spine-chilling glare. NPCs, yes, we were just non-player characters.
To you all.
You treated us like objects to use and abuse as you wished, with no regard for us or our lives. Her anger was palpable. Do you know how many players I begged for help after my village was slaughtered? Do you know long I waited in that city center praying that anyone would take revenge on that man? Yumi slammed the butt of her staff into the ground, causing a small tremor. And do you know what they told me when I asked for help? They told me it didn't matter because I wasn't real, that my friends weren't real, that my family wasn't real. Yumi said, on the verge of tears. Do you have any idea how horrible that was to hear every day for 3 months? She began to cry. To be told that my entire life was meaningless, to be told that if I died, no one would care, just because I wasn't real. She took in a deep breath. Well, it sure as hell felt real to me. She screamed, startling Minazawa. I watched as that player took joy in killing them all, as he happily slaughtered everyone I knew and loved. But that's okay, it didn't matter because we weren't real. Yumi said coldly.
Wah. Minazawa was caught off guard.
That was until the day I met her. She wiped her tears and charged her staff. When I told her what happened, do you know what her response was?
Yumi asked.
She got angry. She was angry that players could walk by someone begging for help. She was angry that you would allow such a disgusting person to roam freely in the world. Yumi threw a weak blast at Minazawa that was easily repelled. She told me that it didn't matter that my world existed inside a game, that it was just as real as the world she came from. Yumi's eyes were almost sparkling as she told the story. She held me in her arms and told me that I was real and anyone who said otherwise was wrong. That my life had value and that she would care if I died. Yumi's face had a twisted, almost perverted smile on it. Can you imagine that? The joy I felt when she acknowledged me and told me that she cared. She let out a creepy giggle. Did you know, I used to be a priestess who served the gods on behalf of my village. I was in charge of managing the shrine, preparing offerings and so much more. I slaved away every day for those gods, and what did all that faith, all that service get me? She asked rhetorically.
Nothing, she yelled.
In my hour of need it wasn't the gods that saved me from despair, it was her. And so I figured the gods weren't worth of my worship, my loyalty or my service, but she was. Yumi's face glowed as she recalled the events. The destruction of her village destroyed her faith in the gods, and the cruel words of the players shattered her mind. What remained was little more than a husk of the bright and cheery girl that Yumi had been before the attack. When Akaji found the broken girl, her fractured mind latched onto her and Akaji became her new object of adoration. This attachment did help to heal Yumi's mind. But it's likely that she will never fully recover from her past trauma, and to this day she still views Akaji as a semi-divine figure. Akaji's experience with her own mental health crisis has been helpful in guiding Yumi back to some sort of normalcy, even if it did require her to accept Yumi's misplaced worship. So, if you really must know why I won't abandon her, it's because to do so would be the ultimate betrayal of the kindness she showed me that day. Yumi continued. When it came down to it, the gods weren't the ones who avenged my village, it was a monster. A beautiful, kind and lovely monster saved me. And I will not permit you to insult her," she said, raising her staff to challenge Minazawa, her eyes burning with passion. Minazawa stood silently and found herself at a complete loss for words. Yumi's story completely overturned everything she thought she knew about the AI in FWO. While players knew that the tech powering FWO's NPCs was bleeding edge, most still treated them as they would characters in any other game. It was assumed that no matter how smart or lifelike they were still just scripted programs with no real thoughts of their own. Sure, there were a few oddballs who treated them as normal people, but most players viewed them as little more than window dressing for the game setting. Killing non-quest related NPCs was rarely considered an issue to most, and while most people would find it distasteful to outright murder them, you would be hard-pressed to find anyone who would speak out against it. Anyone who did was quickly ostracized and treated like mental patients. They were viewed as victims of the game, and as people who lost sight of reality. This self-policing only served to reinforce the viewpoint that the NPCs weren't real people. However, the girl standing before Minazawa was real. She cried, she got angry, and she expressed hatred and joy. How could you consider her anything else? If SHE was like this in the game, then it stood to reason that the rest of the NPCs were as well. This realization caused Minazawa's blood to run cold. Players killed them, tortured them, abused them, and so much worse, all comforted in the knowledge that they weren't harming real people.
When, in fact, they were.
Glass shattering sound effect. Minazawa faltered for a moment, dropping her weapon.
And no.
If that's true, then that means. Well, what have we done?
Minazawa.
Minazawa went back and forth in her mind, trying to find something, anything to disprove this notion. She thought back on her time in FWO, remembering all the interactions she had with the various NPCs. The shop owners with witty banter, the children who enjoyed playing games, and the adventurers who aided the assault team. Looking back, it was obvious that these weren't just pre-made entities with scripted dialogue, but real people. They could laugh, cry, get angry, and even hold a grudge. Why did she and all the other players ignore this when it was right in front of their faces? Was it because they didn't want to believe such a thing was possible? Or was it because the players wanted to keep a wall between the game and the real world? She said her village was whipped out by a player. And I have a feeling I know who it was.
Minazawa.
Her stomach began to churn as her gut told her who was responsible for the tragedy that befell this poor girl. But she didn't want to believe it, because if it was true then.
Tell me, she asked weakly.
Who was the player that attacked your village? At this point she was praying that she was wrong. Yumi stared at her for what felt like an eternity before answering. Great Fox, that was his name, Yumi answered, barely biting back her anger. Hearing that name, Minazawa collapsed on her knees. She had been right, and her greatest fear was realized. Great Fox was the name that her boyfriend Kayajaro used in FWO. She knew he had exterminated a village to access a skill he needed for his build, and at the time, she didn't care. But now, she understood that those villagers weren't just characters, but real people. And that meant that Kayajaro had committed an unspeakable act of horror. This sudden revelation caused her to vomit on the ground as her head began to spin. That the man she loved had perpetrated such an atrocity was too much to bear. Yumi stood across from her in complete shock. She never imagined her opponent would lose all will to fight just from hearing her story. It seemed that she overestimated her opponent's mental fortitude. In her eyes, the other players were abhorrent people, but even still, seeing Minazawa act this way made her feel pity. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Most players would likely never have done such horrible things in their world. In the game, they convinced themselves that we were nothing more than mindless drones and that it didn't matter what they did to us. With that illusion shattered and the truth made evident, I guess most people would react this way. Yumi felt somewhat sorry for the woman. A few moments later, Minazawa composed herself enough to speak. I am so sorry. She began to cry.
We didn't know. We didn't know.
She started shaking as she wrapped her arms around herself. If I had known, I would have stopped Kayajaro. I wouldn't have let him do something so horrible to you. I'm sorry. Yumi's revelation had left her broken. Yumi lowered her staff. You were not the one who killed my family and friends. You are not at fault for the deaths that he caused. Yumi said in a warm voice. Besides, he has already paid for his crimes with his life. I believe that is enough.
Doesn't she hate me?
Even though I never killed anyone in the game, I didn't view them as people. I used and abused them like the rest, and I acted terribly towards so many of them. Doesn't she blame me and everyone else for what happened? Doesn't she want to kill me?
Minazawa.
Now then, it would appear that my lord has finished her fight with your friend.
She said with a smile. Shall we continue?
Or can I consider this fight over? Hearing that Ishigami was defeated, Minazawa slowly stood up and placed her sword in its sheath.
No, I don't want to fight anymore. Her voice was still unsteady.
The only reason I agreed to fight Akaji was because I wanted revenge for Kayajaro's death. She looked down.
But now?
Now I just want to go home. I still don't agree with what she does, but I now understand why Kayajaro had to die. What he did was unforgivable, even if I do still love him.
Minazawa.
That's good to hear. I will inform my lord you have withdrawn from combat and will be leaving. She said, watching as Akaji walked towards them. Do you wish to speak with her?
No.
I don't even know what I would say. I might try and talk to her later when I've sorted my thoughts. Minazawa looked at Yumi and asked. Your name is Yumi, right? Can you go ahead and pass on a message to your master? Her voice was still shaky.
Yumi nodded.
Tell Akaji. Tell her that she was right about Hasan. We really were all idiots, just like she said. Minazawa then proceeded to jump onto the rooftop of a nearby structure and disappear beyond the base's walls. Almost immediately after she left, Akaji appeared next to Yumi. Well, I guess that went better than expected, huh?
Akaji grinned.
Yes, I must admit, I was quite nervous to fight her by myself. I was even considering sending an SOS to Chloe if it came to it. Yumi said while scratching her cheek. It's good that Minazawa backed down from that fight, but don't expect the other players to have the same reaction, Akaji warned. Minazawa was on the nicer end of the spectrum. I can tell you that many won't care one bit about all those they killed while in the game.
Akaji. Yes, I know.
I don't intend to let my guard down.
Yumi said.
Just making sure. Akaji turned and faced the main building. Now that the final obstacle has been removed. How about we have a nice chat with the general and end this nonsense? Akaji said as she pulled Yumi into a hug.
Spoiler.